This is not some soulless factory. This is long, quiet days with the Father. This is obedience. This is cold, early mornings, tired, rough hands, and hot summer days. This is quality before quantity. This is where you're not just a customer, you're a client. I don't just work for you, but with you. This is where your ideas come to life. I am Joshua Watts. I love what I do and that I'm able to use my skills to serve our Father and you. I look forward to working with you. This is Joshua Watts Leather Company.
We all need good tools. At Cascadia Cutlery, you'll find the most quality knives you'll ever need. There are few things more frustrating than a dull blade. Buy the best knife you can afford and then actually carry it at CascadiaCutlery.com.
If this is true, then our country is in a lot of trouble.
We would have these trips, these special trips.
But he said my daddy takes the bodies to the grocery store and he grinds them up and puts it in the hamburger. And nobody ever knows it.
How can kids 6, 8, 10 years old be describing rituals that come from a book like the Book of the Dead? It's hard to get your mind around people being capable of this kind of evil.
This is Dan Bidondi of TruthRadioShow.com. I am honored to offer my listeners a 1-month free subscription to nystv.org. Subscribers will have access to thousands of nice TV videos from spiritual warfare to biblical and occultic topics, banned from YouTube videos, and much more. Subscribe today on nystv.org and use the promo code DANTheMan and receive your first month free.
If you're receiving this transmission, you are the resistance, declaring war on the New World Order. TruthRadioShow.com. And welcome everybody to the Dan Bidondi Show right here on TruthRadioShow.com. Today is a Spiritual Warfare Friday, and we got an awesome show for you today, guys. Mormonism Exposed. We're going to talk about SRA within Mormonism, expose some of the deep underground tunnels they got going on. And we got two people that are a couple, married couple, both of them are lifetime Mormons, and they're going to expose everything that they've been through, and especially Sara and Willy. They're gonna, especially Sara. She's been through a lot since she was a child of being a Mormon and all that. And so I want to introduce, first of all, before we get to that, I want to thank FOJCRadio.com for carrying our show, and beforeitsnews.com as well. So, and again, it's called Mormonism SRA and the Secret Occult Tunnels Exposed from Within. So this is going to be an awesome show, lots of information, and when I thought I knew a lot about Mormonism, man, I wow, and it's like I was just blown away when Sara decided to call one night, one of the shows, and talk about her experiences as a Mormon. So yeah. So without further ado, let's just get to our guests here, and we got Sara and Willy, both the former Mormons. And Sara, how you doing?
Good. I'm doing very good. And it's just me that's a former Mormon. Will
Oops, I'm sorry.
Catholic.
Repeat that again. I forgot to.
Two worst religions, you know.
Repeat that again. I forgot to unmute you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I said it was only me. I'm the only one that was raised Mormon.
Oh, okay.
Will was raised a Catholic.
I'm a recovering Catholic too.
Yeah.
No, yeah. A lot of weird thing that happens in the Catholic Church also.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, if you guys want to give an introduction, I know you can't give out your names because where you're living, and very understandable. So if you want to give an introduction, whatever the case, and tell us, your experience. How you grew up in the church and all that, the Mormon church and all that, and go for it.
Okay. So I'm a second generation Mormon. My father was raised Protestant. He was born in a Protestant Rhode Island, same as you. And my mother was born in Maine, but I'm not sure what part. Mm-hmm. Her mother, my grandmother, was converted to Mormonism in Maine. She was taking missionary lessons, and then the missionaries came by and told her that the town she lived in was so wicked that they've had to wipe their feet. Now, we know that this is a biblical thing, but the Mormons, when they believe that when they wipe their feet, bad things will happen. The Mormons actually have what's called avenging angels, and this is a whole different ball game right there. But that night, after they came to her house, almost the whole entire town burned down. And I wonder how that happened. but that, to her, was proof that this religion was true. And so a lot of my family history is pretty dark, and so I'm going to tell you guys a few things. And this also shows generational curses as well. So I was raised all my life hearing that my grandparents divorced because my grandfather did not want to be Mormon. And that they ended up causing them to separate, and so she ended up eventually moving to Salt Lake, like a lot of the Mormons do when they're converted from other places, because the Salt Lake Temple is like the Vatican of the Mormon religion here in Salt Lake. Anyway, so but that was enough to convince her, and so she did become Mormon, and then I find out years later what really happened is when my grandmother, I believe, when she was pregnant with my mother, who was the youngest of 6 children, he got his own sister pregnant. And so, yeah, that was a bad thing. And I believe I met the son without knowing it until later in life that that's probably who it was. It was a male child. And then my grandmother, she was very grossly sexually abused, raped by her father. And so, there's a history that goes on there. So, fast forward to my life in Mormonism. I was born in Salt Lake City, in Rose Park, pretty close to the Salt Lake Temple. I was born into a lifestyle where we had two live-in nannies and a housekeeper. And I know that's not everybody's lifestyle, and you don't realize that when you're younger, but it didn't stay that way very long. And things turned south really, really bad, really fast. When I was 6 years old, my mother, she kept complaining to my father about having headaches. And so she went in to get checked up, and they found that she had a huge tumor in her brain. And so they ended up doing brain surgery, and from that time on until I was about 8 years old, she was in and out of the hospital, mostly in. I mean, she would be in there for like 6 months at a time. And so my father would divide us up amongst different members in the Mormon church, and to help take care of us while he was working, and then he was spending the time in the hospital with her. And then my mother, when I was 8 years old, on my youngest sister's birthday, well, she passed away a few days before, but she was buried on my sister's birthday. And back then, the prophet, or the president of the Mormon Church, his name was Spencer W. Kimball, ended up, he was friends with my father, because my father at the time was actually working church security. He was a police officer, but he was working church security as well, too. And so he came to my mother's funeral, which so many more people came, just I think for that reason right there, because they wanted to see him and be around him in real life. And so, and then after that, my father locked himself in his room for about 2 weeks and just grieved. He just put pictures all around the house, or all around his room, and lit candles. And then when he surfaced, he was not the same person. I believe absolutely, 100%, he became somehow demonically possessed at that point because of the things he would do to us after. My father used to try and come after us physically to beat us and stuff. And my real mother would put a broom between us. She'd put us behind her and put a broom in front, so that, and she'd tell him, if you hit him, she'd tell my dad, if you hit him, she picks the broom up like a bat, and she said, I'm coming after you. and so she was very worried that he to have us left alone with him, and she wanted my mother, or her mother, I mean, to take us, and he would not allow that. So, but what is strange about this too, I want to go into some high supernatural strangeness with this whole thing as well too.
Sure.
My mother, prior to passing away, had taken, each one of us had put a set of clothing in every one of our closets saying funeral clothing. And this was probably 6 or 7 months is what my family figured before she even passed away. And so she absolutely somehow knew that she was going to pass away. Due to the brain surgery, she had no memory of my 2 youngest brothers. And then we had 8 children. My parents had 8 children together, and she had 5 miscarriages. I left this out too. My parents negotiated prior to getting married. My mother was married one time before. She married a biker and her father signed for her to get married at age 14, and then she deceived him to be able to get a divorce, because divorces back then were really hard. She told him that she was going to become an airline stewardess and that they had to be single. And so he granted her a divorce under those conditions, because I guess he was kind of a bum and did not want to work.
Yep.
And as soon as she got the divorce, she took off to Salt Lake. And my father and her brother were really good friends, and that's how they met. And then fast forward. Anyway, so she passed away, but she had 5 miscarriages, which would have been 13 children altogether. And so my father, pretty much after she passed away, abandoned us. He would come home every few weeks and bring food and beat us and things like that. And so me and none of us were able to go to school. When my mother died, there were 3 younger children in diapers. So I was 8, my sister was 9, and our childhood was over at that point. We were changing diapers and taking care of kids all day and trying our best to hide from neighbors so that we didn't get the social services called on us. And, I mean, it got so bad at times we were going through the neighbors' garbage cans at night trying to find food, me and my brother would. And so the neighbors did call social services on us a few times. And one of the times is when we drove up to Salt Lake to Temple Square, where my dad was working at the time, and we were not supposed to be on the premises while he was at work. And this is the first time that he took us down in the tunnels and hit us. And so that was my first experience. I had 2, and I don't exactly remember the other time, but the first time, I swear to you, he stuck us in a room where you could look up above, and the ceiling was glass. It looked like glass, and so I couldn't figure this out as a child, and it had a huge table and chairs around it. And so I was scared to death that this glass was going to break and these tables were going to come through. I didn't understand about plexiglasses or plastics or any of that stuff. All I knew is I could not figure out how that was possible. And so that was kind of my first introduction. The tunnels under the Mormon Church were talked about in my family, off and on growing up. So it was something we were very, very aware of. But it was like something you would never talk about outside the house because, we just couldn't do that, Anyway, so I need to go back a little bit too, Dan, because on this part right here I did not take notes on some of this stuff, but I'm having memories of stuff that happened. I'm going to tell you about my first supernatural experience. And I do believe absolutely that these experiences, these supernatural events do happen absolutely because of the rituals that the Mormons do in the Mormon Temples. And Bill Sniblin himself kind of goes over these things. But my first memory of anything supernatural was when I was about 2.5, and my father, he was a bodybuilder and he was a heavyweight lifter. He went from bodybuilding to heavyweight lifting. But he had probably the best gym in Salt Lake. He had the best weight sets. He had the best everything. And this was in the house I was born in. And so we'd have like a lot of cops and bodybuilders come to our house on certain days, and they'd all work out. And so this particular night, there was a lot of people downstairs, and we had like a 2-story house, and so my bedroom was upstairs. But I seen a woman and a man walk through my wall. And I've told the story 1,000 times over because I could not figure out for the life of me, how this possibly happened. And so the woman, she was like in a one-piece bathing suit, and she had like a banner, like a Miss America banner around her. I'd never seen a beauty pageant, nothing by that at that age. And so I didn't know about these things. I recognized it later, when I got older, when I finally watched one. But she came up and held my hands when I was in the crib and told me that she was going to be my sister and her name was going to be Mary. So this is no lie. The man did not say anything. He was in a suit. And then she talked to me for a while and then walked back through the wall. So I spent probably like the next 2 weeks running as fast as I could, trying to figure out how to get to the wall. And my mother, she had to put me in a room, I'm guessed with one of the nannies to keep an eye on me because I kept doing this stuff, because I just could not figure it out. When you get older and start reading the Bible, you realize who these people are. And so that was my first supernatural experience. But in this same house, my parents had left to go out, I don't know, on a date or something.
Yep.
And we had some babysitters come over for whatever reasons. The nannies might have been on vacation or whatever. I don't know. I was younger. I don't know all the details to this. But this couple had babysat for my parents maybe a few times. And then they were midgets. That's all I know. They were midgets, a husband and wife. And they started molesting my oldest brother. I believe they molested him. They stripped him down and took pictures of him. And so... and the bishops in the Mormon Church are not formally trained in anything. They're not trained in their positions. They don't get paid for anything. Everything, almost every position in the Mormon religion is done free. Very few of them are actually paid for anything. And so this is why there's like such a great wealth to the Mormon Church, because they don't pay you really for nothing. Anyway, so, but the way how the bishops handle these situations is that they tell the victim that they're supposed to pray over this and forgive their offenders. And so this is why, and this right here happened close to probably 50-something years ago. And they're worse today than they were back then. And so in return, because I could never figure out why my father did not do something about it. I thought it was because of pride and ego and stuff. Why these people were able to get away with it. I didn't realize until I was older that this was actually a teaching that they actually teach. And so in return, because this was not resolved, I ended up early in my life. The same brother ended up offending me for quite a few years. And so once again, it was dealt the same way, and excuse me. Anyway, so going back to my mother's death, about a year after she died, my father met my stepmother, who was an absolute angel, and they were married. She had 5 kids, so we had a total of 13 kids growing up. And so that was fun and interesting. No, we're not polygamous. just a big family. Anyway, so, but he had molested me just shortly after they all moved in, and that was my first suicidal attempt, is at that age. And my sister came in, and I tried to hang myself, and I broke the rod in our closet, and then I told her what was going on, and because I was scared to death, because he used to always tell me, if you say anything, I'm going to tell Dad it's your fault. You know, they do stuff like this, you know, to intimidate you and stuff, and so I was always afraid to say anything. And my dad, also, I want to say this too, he told me my sister when we were about 7 years old, because Ted Bundy was in Utah around this time too. My father, being a cop, was he was, I believe, involved with the case of the sheriff's daughter that Ted Bundy killed. So there's a lot of talk about a rapist being around and things like this. Of course, I didn't understand what a rapist was back then, but he had told us that if a man tries to force himself on you, and we were just kids, that you're better off dying than to allow this to happen. And so that's going to come in a little bit further down the road that my father said this. Anyway, so after I tried to hang myself, my sister went and told my father about this, and he took me and my brother outside, and he was standing behind my brother, and he had his hands around the back of his neck and told him to apologize and ask for forgiveness. And so he did, but he did this with a smirk on his face, and so I was very upset about it. But he never touched me again. But he did end up going on after my younger sister, but it was only a few times. And my father did not want my stepmother knowing, because she just moved in and she had 4 daughters and then 1 son. So we had a total of 7 girls and 6 boys. And so, but it put a stop to it. So I was so grateful that my stepmother moved in, and to just have a mother too to help out with kids and stuff. And so, and then also my father made me and my sister get leads, 10 leads every single day, because he did a sales job on the side.
Yep.
And so, like I said, our childhood was pretty much ripped from us. You know, but, you know, a lot of families go through that. People go through hard times, and, you know, the kids, this is all throughout history, kids have to pitch in and help and stuff, you know, so I look back and see these things differently than what I did when I was younger. Anyway, so about my family in Mormonism, though, my stepmother is actually a descendant of Joseph Smith. Her maiden name is Smith, and also, Woodruff Wilson. On her mother's side, Smith on her father's side. So her family came over. They were from the beginning. So she would be like an elitist Mormon. And so, you know, like I said, we were second-generation Mormons. But the great damage that this religion did to my family is like astronomical. Also, in my family, I've had a brother who was a bishop, another brother. There's a bishop, then a first counselor, and a second counselor. So I had another brother who was a first counselor, and I've noticed this too, that in a lot of these wards, they'll pick some of the wealthiest members to put them in positions of bishop, first counselor, things like that. And I think that's because they're dealing with tithing, and so Mormons give 10% of everything that they make. And so I do have in my family. I do have several siblings who are millionaires, and so I was explaining this to you earlier that you know, right off the bat, you know, say they bring in a pension of like say $1 million a month or something like that, you know, they're looking at $100,000 is right off the bat given to the church, and so you know that's a it's crazy, and understanding the Bible now that has nothing to do with actual tithing, and so anyway, so my father stayed consistently abusive. So I want to explain something about my father too. He made front page of National Enquirer when he was a cop because the police department used him as muscle. He loved to fight. He loved violence. He was made front page on National Enquirer in his police uniform, and all he was doing, he was holding out his pinky finger. He had knocked 8 guys out cold in a bar. It was in a bar fight, and so he was called, and he knocked 8 of them out cold, and all he did was broke his pinky. Wow. And so this same man came after children on a daily basis. There were people who called the cops. Some of the neighbors did, and no, the cops would never show up. They just turned a blind eye to the things he did. Same with the Mormon religion. People told the bishops and things like that. No one did nothing to save us. There's a part in the Bible where they warn the men, do not turn your children bitter. Well, my father turned a lot of us very, very bitter. I was my mother's namesake, and I have a brother, Carl, who is my father's namesake. And I'll get into that in a minute because some of this stuff is just so heartbreaking what's happened to my family.
Well, the Bible says in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, and you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and the admonition of the Lord.
That's true.
Yeah. I actually had scriptures written down, but when I was doing my notes today, I think I erased most of them. I can't find what I did with them, so I appreciate that you looked that up.
Oh, no
anyway,
problem.
So in my family, I think with the Mormons, I'm going to say this right now. There's any Mormons listening, not dissing on the congregation whatsoever. Like a lot of people who come out of the Mormon religion, they'll say the same thing. The Mormons, most of the people are very wonderful, very beautiful people. There is a lot of good things about Mormons. I'm going to say a few right now. The first mall in history throughout the United States was actually here in Utah. It's called the ZCMI Mall, and this is founded by Mormons. The Mormons are experts at food storage and the survival supplies. So I was taught, I can, we do our own mother meals. I do all kinds of stuff for for pantry preparation and things like that, And so, and I learned this from being a Mormon, But the rest of what goes on with the Mormon religion is very, very heartbreaking. And Bill Sniblin had made a comment on one of his videos I was listening to, where he says, you really have to want to put blinders on in order to want to stay in the Mormon church. I mean, it's like you're just begging to be trampled on. See, and being raised as Mormon, let me put it this way: if you're raised in an occult religion, which I believe absolutely, I know absolutely, this is what is going on with the Mormons. You don't know any better. You just don't know any better, especially if you are a generational Mormon. On my mother's side, her whole entire family, and this goes into the thousands on my mother's side, are Mormon. My father tried to convert his family, and it stuck with a few of them, but most of them not. And so, anyway, but yeah, so there's a huge. I mean, my family just forever is so involved with the Mormon Church, and they're very, very devoted, and so Mormons also too. Like my sister, I will tell her, I'll recommend books and things like this. One of my sisters, my older sister, and she will not look at or do anything unless it's church approved. I remember when the movie, what was it called? E.T. Phone Home came out. The Mormon prophet at the time forbid the congregation anyway here in Utah. If he said it was for all of them, but he forbid everyone to watch E.T. come home or phone home. I've still to this day have never seen it.
Oh, the movie E.T.?
Yeah, so, but it was forbidden for whatever reason. And then the, what was that one? The third, there was another one that came out the same year. Anyway, it was about this music, and this guy was building some kind of mound out of dirt or something. But that was, as far as I remember, that was forbidden to watch as well, too.
Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah, Yep. Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. It's right here
So,
on the screen.
and this was dealing with, it's supposed to be alien stuff.
Yep.
Both movies, and I find that weird, but I recognize why now. Anyway, so going from there, my father never went after the stepchildren, but they seen the violence every single day, and so he was just out of his mind. He'd pull guns on us. He would. It was mostly on my brothers. He threw my brother when he was 16 years old out on the streets. My youngest brother, because the violence was so bad in our home, even what happened too is my father would pit us against each other. He'd make us put boxing gloves on, things like that, and fight. And so none of us, still to this day, as adults, my biological family, we don't have communication skills on how to communicate with one another without fights breaking out, still to this day. And it's so heartbreaking. But my youngest brother, the violence would break out, and he'd go up to the wall and start banging his head on the wall until he would knock himself unconscious. And so we'd catch him, but he still hits and kicks himself to this day. And there is a name for this, and I don't remember. I looked this up years ago in on another computer we used to own, and so I don't have the information anymore. Anyway, but this is a symptom of children of war who were in wars. And so this shows the horrific violence that went on in our home. It was just bad. My stepmother, when she moved in, her husband, her ex was pretty wealthy. They were pretty well off, and so she brought all this beautiful furniture and stuff with her, and redid the house the way how she wanted it. I would swear within 5 years, just about everything she brought to her house had been destroyed. Why she stuck around, I don't know. Other than she told me that I knew you kids needed a mother, and so like I said, this woman was an angel. She took care of us, and so. But like you were not allowed to be sick on Sabbaths because it did not look good. On Sundays. It did not look good for my father if someone was missing. And so if you said you were sick, you better have a bad fever or something, or, he was going to beat you for it, It just over little things. Everything he found, it was like he was looking for reasons to be angry. When my mother was alive, and my father when he pulled up in the driveway, we would all run outside. All the kids were, and sing to him, for he's a jolly good fellow. This is like every day, Dan, every day. Wow. When he worked. Shortly after she died, when we heard, because he, like I said, he abandoned us, and he would show up every so often. And when we heard that car pull up, we'd all hide. Because we knew if he found you, he was going to beat you. For we don't know what for, he'd find reasons. It was like he became angry. But one time in my hiding spot, I could see his face. I could see him, but he could not see me. And I swear it was not his face. This was not his face. I did not recognize him whatsoever. I remember thinking, who is he and what happened to my dad? And I was probably about 8 years old at that time too. Okay, so fast forward. Due to the abuse, it caused a lot of rebellion in my family. Yep. In my biological siblings, we ended up rebelling pretty bad. Most of us. I kept running away from home because I couldn't handle the beatings and the chaos that was going on all the time. My brother joined the military. He said it was easier. They were easier on him than living at home. I had a brother when he was 16 that ran away, and he was gone for about 6 months. He showed up on Christmas Day because he was missing the family and wanted to come back home. And my dad, on the front lawn in front of all the neighbors, choked him almost to death for running away in the first place. So he took off, and we didn't see him again for quite a while. And then, it just was nonstop. But the worst one was my brother, who was just 13 months younger than me. My father beat him so bad at times, right in front of his friends. And my sister, my youngest sister, she was dating a man. By the way, I need to mention this too. We are Scandinavian, and my father's mentality, more than anything, I would say, would be Viking. It was a Viking mentality. And so in our neighborhood and most of our associations, we're Scandinavian growing up. And this is a lot of reasons why I believe my father was able to get away with some of the stuff he was doing. And our bishop at the time was also, we're Swedish. My father's pure Swedish. And the bishop at the time was actually Swedish that had moved here from Finland. And my sister actually married one of his sons. And so, and I think because they have an understanding of this mentality, and this stuff still goes on today as much as it did back then, this mentality. And so that was kind of why people turned a blind eye in my neighborhood and in the church as well, too. There are a lot of Scandinavians in the Mormon religion. Now, I believe part of that is because, the Scandinavians believed in, I call them God collectors, these are people who collect different gods that can do different things. In Scandinavia, all of Scandinavia has accepted Christ except for the Swedes. The Swedes, they'll say this on the internet today, that if you're Christian, stay the heck out of our country. They don't want nothing to do with it. They'd rather stay with the old ways, which is really sad. And they're the ones that you hear on the internet almost every single day. The Swedes did this, the Swedes did that. The Swedes got their chips, And so, and because this is tribe of Dan, I believe too. It was Scandinavians as well as other people are tribe of Dan, and so the Mormon prophet right now is a Swedish. That's running the church right now.
Yeah.
And so, because SON is Swedish. The SEN is like Danish and Norwegian and stuff. But the Swedes, I believe, are the only ones that have the SON behind their name. That's not the only. I mean, there's a lot of different Swedish names. My maiden name it does not have an SON. But anyway, okay. So going back to this, so my younger brother, my sister's, husband that she married in the future, his mother was like a professional student. She came from a lot of money, and she was also her husband's father was Swedish, and his mother was Jewish, and she was a Kabbalist. Wow. And so, but she was also a psychiatrist, and she pulled up one day to pick up my sister and her other daughter, and she seen my dad beating my brother out in the lawn in front of his friends. Yep. And she said to my sister, she said, "Your brother will never amount to anything because of what your father does to him, and he will spend the rest of his life trying to prove to your father that he's worth something." And I didn't think nothing of it at the time, but I realized this was in fact absolutely true. My brother, okay, I'm not quite sure where to start from here. Okay, let me go back a little bit. I have to go back a little bit on this right here. So my father, I mean, he ruled our house very, very tightly. He picked who my sister married. He married her off to a man she's married to now, and he was Mormon. He absolutely miserable. And then I was starting to see a guy that was a cousin of a friend I went to school with, and he pushed and pushed and pushed. And, that you two would be really good together, blah blah. And so we talked on the phone a few times, and I was 16 years old when I met him, and I wasn't really looking for a boyfriend or nothing. I wasn't really too keen on having boys in my life because I just had too much damage in my life from guys by that point. And so, but I agreed to meet him. He came over, and he was like 6'6". My father's 6'4", and my brother's, I think the shortest one was maybe like 6'3" or something. So he was a big guy. Anyway, and so we talked a few times, and I thought, well, he's pretty cute, and he seems really nice. And he was Mormon, but he was a Jack Mormon. He's talking about maybe going on a mission. And so they have, you have like the elite of Mormons. These are people who go into the temples and do their endowments. And then you have Mormons, which is the majority of the people. Most people do not go to the temples, or they might go one time and they never go back in again because something will spook them, or they're not sure what to think, or they cannot live up to the church standards to have your temple recommend. And then you have Jack Mormons, and these are people who believe absolutely that the Mormon Church is true, but they're not living it. But a Jack Mormon, say you could go into a bar, and if someone says something really bad about the Mormon religion, and they overheard this, there's a good chance they're going to want to take you outside, even though they're in a bar. You understand what I'm saying? And so my husband was like the Jack Mormon type. So he came over one day, and my dad happened to see him. He just popped in one day, and my dad grabs me, tells me to go back in the bedroom with them, and he says, "This is the man you're going to marry." He says, "I have the strongest feeling that I've received revelation. You're going to marry this man." And I was like, it was like maybe the fifth time I met him. Anyway, and then he just told me, "Do not do it the wrong way." And so, because my dad asked him a few questions, and when he found out that he was Mormon, all he could think about was these great big grandbabies he could train. That's all he could think about. And so, because I knew how my dad was. Anyway, so what happened shortly after that is this same man, that's my soon-to-be husband, forced himself on me. He raped me, and because of what my father said about that we're better off dead, and I tried my best to fight him off. His mom and his siblings were gone. His mom was a single parent, and there was nothing I could do. But I felt so much shame. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to turn to, and so eventually, and this happened a few times. And then I'm going to tell you, when you are treated like a rag doll, eventually you stop fighting. You just stop fighting, and it's just better to. And my father's already told me I'm going to marry him, so I ended up pregnant, and at 17, I was married off to him, and so. During my pregnancy, though, we were living at my father's house, and my husband, I developed a urinary tract infection, didn't even know what it was, but it was feeling like razor blades when I was peeing drops of blood. And I figured that this, because I'm Rh negative, and so I had to do a Rhode gamma shot, and I thought that it had something to do with that somehow affected my body. Because I came from a very holistic family. My mother was very holistic. I think the most we ever had in our house was like aspirins, and then she'd even make like her own throat lozenges and sprays and things like that. We didn't bring medicine in from outside the house. And anyway, so I thought it was something to do with that shot which I had months earlier. I had no idea I could do those. But this man literally kicked it because he wanted to be intimate with me, and I kept trying to tell him over and over, it's really painful down there. And he kicked me with his legs while I was 5 months pregnant, where I flew across the room and went into a dresser. And this right here was like the beginning of that. But by then, I'm going to tell you, I thought that this is just how men were, because my brothers were very violent too, and I didn't know who to go tell that he had done this. And so, but I did go talk to my mom about the urinary tract infection, and she took me to the doctors, and that's what they told me what I had. But that started off a whole slew of crap with this man. Later on, after I had my son, we went to the Great Salt Lake, which is just a stinky pile of water. It just smells horrible. There's only closest thing that you have in Utah to a beach in that area in Salt Lake. So we went down there. Him and his friend talked to me into going down there with them. I'm blonde, blue-eyed, and our son has red hair, and we're both very pale-skinned. And the only thing I had from my son was like in his stroller was like that little covering over the top, the little awning. And anyway, they pull out a watermelon and poke holes in it and fill it up with vodka or something, some kind of alcohol. And then right there in front of me, he starts chasing other girls in bathing suits and stuff. And so, long story short, and I was getting like blisters on my skin. There was no shade. There was nowhere to go that had shade. And so they had a live band playing. And so I walked over to the bleachers and was trying to hide under there with my son. One of the band members had seen the situation and been watching it and offered to take me home after. He says, if your husband won't take you home, he says, we have another gig, and then after that I'll drive you home. And I was so desperate by then. I was thirsty. I didn't have nothing, and I begged my husband several times to just please drive me home. My son was screaming and stuff, and he just did not care. They're doing this whole series about the Timothy Project right now on now you see TV and narcissism. And back then, you didn't know what those words meant, but this is totally how he was. He's very much like that. Anyway, and so I went and told him. I went and told him, trying to jar him out of it. I said, this man's offering to take me and Jared home. If you don't want to do it. And I said, I don't want to be alone with him. I don't know this person. Will you please take us home? He said, no, it's okay. You can let him take you home. Okay. So my husband's family used to look at me. I'm Sandra D to me all the time because they thought I was such a goody-goody. I grew up, we didn't do drugs or drink or nothing, anyway, and so I didn't participate. I just wasn't participating in these things with him, and so long story short, the guy gave him the address of where we're going to be at, and it was inside of a bar. I'd never been in a bar in my life, so I had to go behind stage and wait for them to finish their gig. And we left, I would say, probably about 10:30 in the morning to go to the beach. And by now it's about 11 o'clock. No food all day. At night, yeah, I'm sorry. And my son, his milk ran out a long time ago. His bottle did. And so I was in a really bad way. My husband shows up, and I was so happy to see him walk through those doors. I was so relieved. And so we were leaving, and we got out to the parking lot. He attacked me, threw me down on the pavement, and bashed my head in repeatedly until I was knocked out unconscious. I was out for like 3 days. And when I came to, he told me that if I ever say anything, I'll never see my son again. Mm-hmm. And he had my son over at his mother's house. And let me explain his family. So the day of our wedding, we go over to his mother's house, and she had a bowl of a pot that as a wedding party gift.
Were they Mormons too?
What?
Were they Mormons too?
Yeah. They were Mormons, but they were more of like the Jack Mormon type.
Oh, when you get a chance too, because everybody in the chat room too, they want to know, about the information you got about the tunnels too, because I know you said that happened when you were younger.
But I'm going to tell you though too, I think it's really important that people have some history of the Mormons so they can understand how these things are happening.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get into some really, really dark stuff with the Mormons that I don't think Mormons have a clue about. And but it is everywhere. These signs are right under their noses. It is everywhere. So anyway, back to this right here. So he bashed my head in, and she.
He told you that if you say anything, you're going to be.
Yeah. Anyway, so about 2 years after this incident, we ended up divorcing because he just was more and more violent all the time, and it got to the point I was afraid he was going to kill me, and so I was married at 17, divorced at 19. Feeling pretty sad and hopeless at this time. Well, actually, no, I divorced him because he was having an affair on me. I found out about it about 3 to 5 months after it started, and so, but a few years later, this ended up causing me to have a really bad stroke, and I had to have brain surgery, which left me in a really bad way today, and so, due to this brain surgery, I was left with amnesia, and so. Believe it or not, I actually forgot majority of the Mormon stuff until I started researching some of it again a few years ago. But even though I forgot most of it, I stayed with the Mormon Church. I would say altogether up until probably about 30-something. I kind of stopped going to church around 26 because my youngest son is Middle Eastern, and the Mormons, they have a thing. As a matter of fact, it's right here. I'm looking at it right now. It says... what is it? Okay, so the early church taught this, and the Mormons try their best to hide it now. But I was actually taught this when I was a child in the 60s and 70s. It says they believe that these sins cannot be forgiven under any circumstances, but only through blood atonement, and that would be murder, adultery, homosexuality, apostasy, apostasy and marrying a black person. So the Mormons believe that the darker your skin color is, the more cursed you are by God. And so, and to have, even though my son's not black, he is dark enough. My husband now is Puerto Rican, so he actually has black blood in him. And so this is a huge sin for the Mormons. And so to even marry one, even though he's dark, I'm considered in the same boat, you know, for a Mormon person to be doing these things. So they have huge prejudice in the Mormon church. Even though in the 1970s, the Mormon doctrine habitually contradicts itself too, you know. So there's a prophecy test in, I believe it's in Deuteronomy 6, I believe, where there's a prophecy test you can take to read and see if it's a false prophet or is it a true living prophet. And so God says, you know, if they're off on one thing, just one thing, they're not a prophet of mine. And so, and I mean, from the beginning to the end, there is just so much crap with the Mormons. But back to what I was saying. So even after my brain surgery, I was going over to my parents' house. They were helping to take care of me, and the violence was going on so bad with my brothers. I could see they were absolutely broken. My two younger brothers never really bonded with my stepmom, even though they have no memory of my biological mother. Yeah. They were too young. Instead, they bonded with me really, really heavily. And so I ended up taking them in and helping my brothers out for 7 years, and was doing most of the working and stuff. They were too, I think, mentally far gone. They still struggle to this day from everything that happened to them. But and so my brother, who's just under me, he ended up being a prospector, and there is a legend of what's called the Rhodes Lost Gold, and he believes that he had found it. George, I forget his last name, and Bill something believe it as well too. They wrote the George something wrote about him in his last prospecting book before he died, and he willed my brother a lot of his prospecting material, but he gave it back to his family. But my brother ended up turning into a scammer. He was scamming so many people. He went as far as Mel Fisher. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He found the Etosha, and it's the largest mother lode of gold ever in history. Yes, a Spanish gold. There's a Spanish gold trail that goes throughout Utah. Anyway, so they became partners, and they had, I believe, it was a $5 million contract. And then Mel found out that even though my brother was not going to church, none of them were. You know, they were, they just were in a bad way. But Carl, my younger brother Carl, I'll say his name because he's passed away. He had enough energy to scam people, though. I'll tell you what. He did this contract with Mel Fisher, and Mel was wiring him down money. They were flying down because he lived in Florida. Him and his daughter and his son-in-law were coming down here and bringing in huge wads of money. But then Carl said that he wanted to give, before anyone got any cut, he wanted to give the Mormons 10%. And so this goes back to him, well, not only due to his faith, but he wanted to show my father, that he was worth something, because my father was probably the hardest on him than any of the boys because he was his namesake. Well, Mel got extremely upset over this, and he didn't feel that was fair, that he does it right off the bat, that he should be cutting into his money. And Carl said, well, that's the agreement, So this was supposedly on Indian property where they thought this lode was. And so Mel went behind my brother's back and tried to make a deal with the chief, who was really good friends with my brother. And so he brought a bunch of alcohol and stuff, and it was a dry tribe. They didn't drink alcohol. And so it turned out really bad for him. But my brother, due to other things he did, he ended up on Sheriff's Most Wanted list, and then he became on Utah's Most Wanted list, and was going towards America's Most Wanted list. But he got caught, and so he served time in prison for this. And then shortly after he got out, he ended up committing suicide. And so this is all, I'm telling you, Dan, this is all in the name of Mormonism. All these tragedies that happened to my family My father pounded this stuff so bad that it just broke people. It just broke all of us. So I would say, like, my two youngest brothers, the Mormons, like that case you just seen with the Lori Daybell or whatever case. This stuff is not as uncommon as you would think. Mormons go out there in tangents. A lot of them, if they walk away from the church, this is in my family, and I see this a lot. They either become atheists or they become New Agers, which is more common than the atheists. But I have a lot of atheists in my family now that have walked away from the Mormon religion on my mom's side, but more New Agers, because that's another form too of it's the same thing. They're both Satanists in their beliefs. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, so a little bit about the temple. Yep. We can go into that if you want to. If you want to, you can pull up those slides with like the pentagrams and stuff.
Yep.
Okay, and I need to get my notepad up real fast.
You have the symbolism all over the building. Upside down stars, pentagrams, and
Okay, so as you're finding that, I just want to say that most people are not aware that there are more than 150, probably more than that today, splinter groups that are off, that come off the Mormon Church. And then while living in Nauvoo, Joseph Smith became a Freemason. A few weeks later, about 6 weeks later, he started introducing these. This is after he became a Master Mason. He started introducing these handshakes to his apostles, and then eventually introduced them into the temple ceremonies. And so you can still go online and find these handshakes, and I think we put a few of them there in the pictures for Dan to show, but they are identical to Freemasonry. There's I think two of them. One's called the Knell, and I forget what the other one's called. But when I was growing up, Mormons do family home evening on Mondays, and so we were taught these handshakes so that we could identify an evil spirit from a good spirit. If it was a good spirit, it would do the right handshake, and so if it's an evil spirit, then it would not know these handshakes. And so I don't know if they still teach this stuff today or not. I don't know. But and I can't talk to my family about a lot of this stuff because I walked away from the church, and I don't think they'd answer a lot of this. But I have one brother that is talking.
I got that the picture of the temple with the pentagrams on it.
Yeah. So they have. Joseph Smith was also a Kabbalist as well too, and I found a very interesting article that shows that his father he joined a group called the Wood Scrapers, and this group is really interesting. They claim to be Israelites, and they kept the dietary laws, and they claim to have kept the laws of Moses, but I believe that they were actually Kabbalists. I found this on Wikipedia, and let me see if I can find this over here. Anyway, and so they were founded in, let me see, they were founded in the 1790s, and they were let me see what they called them. Anyway, but I do believe that this is where Joseph Smith got a lot of information from the Book of Mormon from, and I've never heard this stuff before. That his father was involved with this group right here. He lived about 50 miles away from where the group was, and so, but he's kind of a scoundrel. The Smith family was involved with the cult right off the bat. I have something about his mother, what she'd said, that how they do. This was in her autobiography. She was talking about that they do magic circles and things. Joseph Smith was a squire, meaning he looked into crystal balls. He ended up being kind of a scammer like his father was. They would claim that they could find treasures through squire, looking through crystal balls. and so they rip people off of money with that. And so I'm going to tell you, the Bible talks about if the foundation's not good, then then nothing's good. And so nothing is good with anything he did. There are so many discrepancies with the teachings of Joseph Smith and even his life and the things he did. Anyway, were you able to find those pictures down?
Yep.
Okay, because we don't have the internet on, so we don't interfere. Or is it on, William? Are you looking at it?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay, all right. Anyway, and so he was a Freemason. They were practicing Luciferian. They are also doing satanic worship as well too in these rituals. And the Mormons will say, "Oh, no." But if you don't study these things, how can you say no? This is not true. When other people who are in the occult, they have came out of it, who were Mormon, will say, "Yeah, these things right here are true." So let me tell you this right here. I read, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, an article on Satanism, and the article claimed that if there are, that they have their people are located everywhere, every position, every job, everywhere. If there's two people in a town, one of them is going to be a Satanist or a witch. It's pretty much the same thing. And this is how they're able to keep their order together. And so, and Satanists and Luciferians and all these people who worship the dark side, they are so crafty. They are so crafty that they can convince people that they are following, like a true God when they're actually con them into worshiping Lucifer. This is literally what is going on here. I can't speak for other churches because we tried church hopping a few years ago when we were first waking up to Torah. I was looking for those Christians that were doing keeping the feast days and stuff.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were trying to do that at first, and then you find out the hard way that none of them do that. Let alone most of them don't even preach out of the Bible. They're just as much scammers as the Mormons are. They're not doing the evil that the Mormons are doing. And I'm talking about the officials, but there are enough people in this religion. They have to have them in every position of power. I believe I sent you a picture too of a bishop that was recently arrested for involvement in human trafficking. So that's a good example right there. Did we send that one?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, so if you want, you can pull him up too. But yeah, so they're in a position of power in every aspect of life.
I can't find that picture.
Okay, so but I do want to. I'll point out a few things about the well, actually, William, do you want to go into yours? Because I was going to say, Dan, right now,
talk about the tunnels right now with you.
Okay. So like the one thing I can tell you about the tunnels that I do know right now is because like I said, I wasn't really privy to them, and I do know that in the Mormon Church, a lot of people, and my brother told me about a story he heard a while ago too, just the other day. I would say probably is maybe even 4 years ago. I was able to find these videos of women who claimed that they were being some of them were just kidnapped and some were drugged, but they would come to and they'd be in the basement of they knew. I mean, their stories are like pretty much identical. They were in the basement of the Mormon Temple, and they were taking turns with them, sexually raping them. And they said some of them said that they witnessed human sacrifice. Others said that they were forced to participate in the sacrifice of babies. Usually, is what I heard. And they would put their hands over the women's hands and force them to do this. And so they say that a lot of times they were not the only ones down there, though. There would be other people. And so why they let them go, I don't know. That one's a mystery. But I heard there were so many of these stories on a YouTube even just a few years ago, and now it's almost impossible to find. We tried to find them. Not almost. I haven't been able to find any. And my brother was talking to me about him seeing a video several years back with speaking about the identical same thing. But he was speaking about a woman whose father was a Satanist, and she was given over to the Mormons because he was a Mormon too. and at age 7, and so she is being trafficked out, and then she said that they released her at age, when she was of age to go on a mission, and I will tell you this here too. One of my brothers was a police officer who worked a lot of the crime units.
Yeah.
So in Utah, everyone thinks of Utah being this sweet, naive state, and that nothing like this happens here. That is so not true. He did an investigation years ago. This was probably back in the 70s or 80s, something like that, where he got called into a crime scene out in the woods, where they'd found a baby that had been skinned alive, during a satanic ritual.
Tell him I sent him the link.
The link for what?
The bishop being arrested.
Okay. Well, he can hear you, sweetie. I can hear you.
You hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. I thought I was on mute.
Okay. Anyway, so and then he said
David
that
Moss,
he would get
a former
fed up
lieutenant.
because he would get calls repeatedly for sexual abuse. That people were Mormon. Back then, I would say probably 90% of Utah was Mormon at that time, and we're down to about 70% now. And so he get these calls, and he gets so fed up because the Mormons they would never do nothing, and people felt, I think, it's such a scam. They felt shameful or bad if they went against what their bishop had told them. But the things had gotten so bad that they actually had to pass a law in Utah that if a bishop got a complaint about sexual abuse, especially of children, that they were to call these things in and report them. And still today, this does not happen. Just a few years ago, I'd say about 20 years ago, to one of my ex-husbands, his sister, her husband had been sexually abusing her children, and so she found out about it, and she flipped out, and I told her, do not go to your bishop, because he's going to tell you, that it's better to keep the family together, and you need to forgive and stuff. And she didn't believe me. It's the first thing I told her, and so she flipped out, and she went and pressed charges, and her husband ended up committing suicide right there at the next house. But they found 5 bullets in his gun, enough to shoot every person in his family and himself. So I guess he decided it's better to just take himself out, because it was just a very small town where I was living at the time. Anyway, so some of the interesting facts about Mormons too, as well, is that Utah used to. It's not now it's not on the statistics now, but for a long time, we had the highest teenage pregnancy rate. We had the highest. There's still the spousal abuse is one of the highest, is up there in the country, but it used to be the highest at one time. And this is coming from a state where it's supposed to be good men that are supposed to be keeping, the commandments of the Mormon Church, and that's not, that stuff's forbidden. Although when the Bible says that the man will have, dominion over the woman or whatever, that women answer to men, the Mormons take this literally. A lot of these men take this as that the women are their slaves. And my father used to forbid my stepmother from doing things all the time, even though it was like innocent stuff, And she was a very, very good woman. She wasn't the type that would ever be unfaithful or things like that, But he would just forbid her, and so she wouldn't do them, Because they also believe too that that when they die, the men will become gods, and that they'll have their own planets and be able to, birth life into these planets, and so they will have. So they're supposed to, in order for the woman to make it into heaven, the husband has to literally call her out of her grave, and so so there's, that's got to be a lot of stress. If you don't get along with your husband, he's going to call you out of your grave, even though none of this stuff's true, but they absolutely believe this, and so especially those who are generational, that have been in it for a long time. And so, all of them are corrupt. The polygamists, we have several different types of polygamists here in Utah. The most common one that people think of are the ones that dress like the pioneers from when Joseph Smith was alive. Those are called FLDS, fundamental Latter-day Saints, and then you have like the
Latter-day Saints.
yeah. Then you have like the I can't think of their names right now. Anyway, but there's some that dress just like like everyday people, and but they're, same thing. They're all controlled. These girls are married off to whoever the father chooses to, or the hierarchy in the group, and then they're used as, a lot of them are used as sex slaves. They're flat out satanic organizations in each group. I mean, where they know that they're worshiping Satan. Same as the what are those people that do that food? The Amish. The Amish. A lot of the Amish have turned to pain pills and heroin and have gone into full-fledged Satanism now. And so, it's the same thing. It's corrupted from the foundation up. And so, anyway, but yeah, so we have a lot of sexual perversion, because Masonry is a sex cult, and so this is what comes out of the foundation. And so I believe absolutely when they're going to do their temple endowments, Bill Snibbling he does a really good job of explaining the architecture and the occult symbolisms and stuff, and I took a lot of notes on them. But I'm going to let my husband explain some of the stuff he found first before I get into this stuff. But yeah, so there is a lot of sexual perversion that goes on in this state. One of the ones that I recently have found, where there was a case of a young boy named Michael Jensen, and he was reported on by several members in the church to their bishops, and he was recommended as a babysitter, and he molested, kept molesting kids, and so it was reported. And so the bishops now, there's a 24-hour hotline available, over this abuse, these types of abuse, but it's only available to bishops. And so it goes straight to a lawyer. And so, and I don't think most people are aware of this too. These 12 apostles that's underneath the president, or it used to be this way years back, all of them are retired lawyers. And so this is the legal team for the Mormons. So these calls go right into a lawyer, which I'm sure is one of the 12 apostles, and they say the same thing every single time. They tell their members to pray about it and just forgive them. And so these women, both of them had, there's a video on this on YouTube, both of them had their children molested by this boy as he babysat. And he was just flat out doing pedophilia things with these children. He was a little bit older. He was close to his 20s, I think. I think it started when he was 16. But these women found out from digging around, he'd actually molested more than 40 children. And the church was hiding this. They were protecting them. They were hiding this. And they do this stuff because these higher ups are Satanists, and they're doing the exact same thing. And they don't want this stuff leaking. Right now, I was told by one of my neighbors just recently that they're having a huge exodus out of the Mormon religion. A lot of Mormons are leaving. I don't know all the reasons why. She didn't tell me, but her husband is actually a temple worker here at the St. George Temple. So he works behind the veil. So he's involved with the endowments. Anyway, but I'm really happy to hear that, that this stuff is going on. But yeah, so they're suing the Mormon Church now, and we found quite a few of these cases where this is happening. But I'm going to let William. Are you ready to talk about your stuff, sweetie, about these cases?
I'll talk some of the stuff that I know. Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Hello, pretty good.
Hey, you have any questions up to right now?
Nope. I was just going to ask you guys if you wanted to talk about some of the slides here with the symbolism all over the church.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get into which ones you got up. Look up there, William. See what he's got.
Well, the one with the pentagrams up on the top above the sun symbols.
Okay, so let me pull up an article I got real fast. Let me see if I can find it.
And just to explain to people what the symbolism is, because symbolism in the occult world is It's the language. You know, it reveals to those who can see, and it conceals to those who can't. So the general public, you can't see what it is, and to that, you know, general public is just a cool design, or and if they tell you it's a symbol, they'll give you non-real meaning of the symbol. But in the occultic world, there's a whole story within that one symbol.
Completely different story. Yeah, like I said, I sent you a video. And if you want to, we can do a break for a few minutes, and you can watch that video. And that is really interesting. And this is the Mormons teaching on what these pentagrams mean, which is a big crock of doo-doo. And but this is what people are believing. And then I can go back and read. Well, here's one right here. I'll say this right here. It says, this comes from the book Messianic and Occult Symbols, illustrated by Dr. Kathy Burns. And it says, you will find the satanic pentagram invaluable and indispensable as you attempt to draw from the infernal power of our Lord Satan. This extremely powerful amulet, and it is a summonation of the microcosm, and is a summonation of all occult forces. In other words, there is no amulet or talisman more powerful as the satanic pentagram is. Mm-hmm. And so, I found this one very interesting because of the Mormon garments. The Mormon garments is actually, you could call it an amulet or a talisman. This is something that people use for protection, that they think is going to be able to protect them. And so they're saying that there is nothing more powerful than this pentagram. You know, Anton LaVey has a lot of stuff to say about this pentagram too. You know, all of them do. You know, what I found funny is we were watching some of these videos about what Mormons had to say about the pentagram. And there was this one where this guy was talking about, people think it's strange about the pentagram. He says, really, you need to study. It's very innocent. He was going on about it. And I don't remember most of that, but I remember at the end, he came back after he closed down the video, and he did like a short note, and he says, I find it very strange. He says, me and my kids binge watch scary movies at this weekend, and he says, and I'll be danged if all of a sudden, he said, I didn't notice before, but all of them had the pentagram on them. And he said, there were horror movies, so I don't understand. I just thought that was so funny. But yeah, this is how badly deceived that people can be, though. This right here. I'm going to say this, too. After my brain surgery, I moved into an apartment building when I was pregnant with my son. I got pregnant with my son a month after I had brain surgery. Wow. And so I ended up moving into this apartment building because my husband at the time couldn't deal with everything going on, and he left. And so, anyway, I had amnesia. I was still relearning things. I mean, I had to go through physical therapy to learn to walk and talk and everything. I was a mess. So I had a neighbor that came over and introduced herself, and she just kept coming over. And she told me that she was Wiccan. I didn't know what Wiccan meant. I mean, at first I didn't even know what a house meant, what a toothbrush meant, none of this stuff. I mean, literally I had to learn everything over. And so it's a miracle I got pregnant. Anyway, so but she, and so me and her ended up having about a 30-year friendship. And so I found out later what it was. It was considered a witch, but I didn't think of it as like a witch because she told me that Wiccans, all they do is like they celebrate nature and they do all these good works and stuff. But she ended up becoming darker and more ornery as time went by. Yeah. And so I do Wicca's, believe that there's like an innocent version of Wiccan, and then there's one that's hardcore.
It's like a more indoctrination too. They take good people and all that and indoctrinate them into witchcraft and slowly lure them into the dark magic.
Yeah, and she was raised Mormon. As well. Anyway, but one day, she what? Yeah. She's part Native American as well too. Anyway, she she lived in Vegas at the time, and we went to go see her. She knew we were coming, and I guess we got there a little bit early. And when she opened the door, she had an outlined tape of a pentagram with a circle around it. And I said, what are you doing that for? And she used to wear a pentagram. And I didn't really understand back then what a pentagram was. I mean, I was probably at the Salt Lake Temple more than most kids because it seemed like we were always down there, because my dad worked for the temple too, And so I was down there a lot. And you see these things, and you don't think nothing of it, you just think that they're, you're just part of the temple. You don't really question it. Anyway, but she used to wear a pentagram necklace as well, too. But, and so, yeah, she said that she stands in between it, or in the center of the pentagram for protection. And anyway, I'm going to say this. God woke me up in like the strangest way. I wasn't, I wasn't looking to wake up. I was a blissfully stupid New Ager thinking I was enlightened and, in a whole different path. And when I woke up, anyway, within days, I broke off our friendship. I told her, I'm having something happen to me. I can't explain it. I says, but listen, if you cannot make peace with God and come to Him, I can't have nothing to do with you. And it hurt her really bad. But I'm going to tell you, my family, because of the abuse, and in a lot of ways, I probably had it worse than anybody because I not only had the physical abuse, but I got the mental and sexual abuse really, really bad. And so, and then you put your mother dying on top of that at a certain age, between certain ages. My whole family ended up with what's called complex trauma, and so it's a type of post-traumatic stress disorder that they say is worse than actually a vet going to war because. Well,
before you go into that, you want to play this video, and since we talked about the pentagrams, play the video.
Yeah. If you want to do that, you want to do that right now, then?
Yeah, this way we don't get off topic there.
Okay, yeah. I'll go all over the place. I'm sorry. I warned you, though, Dan.
No problem.
Okay, all right. Yeah, go ahead.
Things that Masons do are things that are very familiar to Latter-day Saints who participate in temple worship. And the question we have to ask is, why did this group, first of all, why did they possess them? And that's a mystery. There's a lot of theory behind it. A lot of people believe that these symbols and signs of Masonry were preserved through the days of the ancient Israelites and Solomon's temple, and that Jesus Christ himself taught these principles in mortality, and that they were things that were given to the apostles. And that somehow this group of what we call the Masons, perhaps through a Templar connection, perhaps through another way, through the apostasy, they preserved these signs and symbols.
When we speak of Masonry, often the Masonry of today is confused with the Masonry of the late 18th and early 19th centuries. On the one hand, we have a contemporary fraternal organization, and on the other, we have ancient symbols and rites that were handed down through time to the Founding Fathers.
Further investigation reveals another occult symbol traced directly into the streets of Washington, D.C., a pentagram. And its southernmost tip points directly to the White House.
Latter-day Saints are accused of being Satan worshipers because some of our early buildings, the Logan Temple, the Salt Lake Temple, the Nauvoo Temple, all three of them have inverted 5-part stars on them. There are 40 on the Salt Lake Temple. Every window on the Nauvoo Temple is an inverted pentagram in a circle surrounded by 3 stones at each of the 4 cardinal directions, 12 stones. Here we have an inverted pentagram surrounding the Nauvoo Temple, the temple designed by Joseph Smith, the prophet of the Restoration. Why would he put a pentagram on one of the most important early temples? The pentagram is perhaps the oldest graphic symbol on the planet, discovered in ancient Babylon. For centuries, for millennia, it was tied to light, to creation, to healing. Some of the old healing professions and doctors used the pentagram as a symbol of healing. Because it has those connections of light, divine geometry, healing and perfection, of course it would be tied to Jesus Christ, and it is. He cast out evil and darkness. He cast out evil spirits. It started in 1855 with a French Catholic deacon who was also a Mason. He was kicked out of the Catholic Church. He was kicked out of Masonry. His name was Alphonse Louis Constant. He was into magic and into some unusual things. He took the upright five-pointed star, a symbol of light, and he inverted it and put it on his first book of magic, making it a symbol of the occult and darkness.
Alphonse Constant changed his name to be Hebrew, and he became known as Eliphaz Levi. This researcher of what he called the ancient doctrines used the pentagram in conjunction with the tetragrammaton to create a symbol blaspheming the sacred name of God. The tetragrammaton is Greek. It means 4 letters. The tetragrammaton has reference to the 4 letters in Hebrew which create the Lord's name. The Lord's name is pronounced by most biblical scholars and Hebrew linguists as Yahweh.
According to Jewish practice, the name of God is treated with such reverence that verbally pronouncing the name is avoided. Writing the name unnecessarily is also avoided, even resulting in abbreviations for the name.
The god of the occult is most commonly represented in satanic illustrations by the tetragrammaton. Occultists consider the Hebrew names of God like Adonai and Elohim to hold power, and none of these is more powerful to them than the tetragrammaton. Clearly, the use of the tetragrammaton and other names of God by Satanists does not make the names of God evil any more than their adoption of the pentagram makes the pentagram evil.
In my era, when there was DVDs and videos that we'd rent, I'd go to the movie store and we'd see scary movies often had an inverted pentagram on it. And so I did a little survey and I found about 10% of all the scary movies, especially those dealing with the occult, had an inverted pentagram in a circle on it. That's exactly the symbol that was on the Nauvoo Temple. No wonder people associated Latter-day Saints with the occult. What they don't understand is the history of that symbol.
The god of the occult is most commonly represented in satanic illustrations by the tetragrammaton. Occultists consider the Hebrew names of God like Adonai and Elohim to hold power, and none of these is more powerful to them than the tetragrammaton. Clearly, the use of the tetragrammaton and other names of God by Satanists does not make the names of God evil any more than their adoption of makes the pentagram.
Yeah, if you turn your end down on the computer there. So here, the back feed. So yeah, that's what pentagrams are. Yeah, we report these a lot. And one correction with that guy was saying that the eastern, the eastern star, which is one pointing up, and the western star is one pointing down. Jesus used, and Jesus never used any pentagrams because and no symbolism at all, because it's kind of part of the second commandment. Making any graven images and things like that. And a pentagram goes back thousands of years. And not just the Mormons, it goes back thousands of years to the Canaanites. It goes back to the old ancient Mesopotamians and all that. They used them in rituals and sacrifices and all that. And it was actually the Star of Bel. And Bel and worship and all that, and Raphaim. And so it was in the book of Amos, chapter 5, it talks about that. And it was, they called it the Star of Raphaim and also the Star of Moloch. And then there was also that's the star. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. That star was actually the so-called Star of David. We did a whole show on that, 2 shows on that, and there was no such thing as a Star of David. There was a Star of Moloch, and so this star we're talking about is actually called the Blazing Star, and Freemasonry is called the Blazing Star, the Dog Star, and it's a symbol of that deity, the Star Sirius. You know what I mean? And so every Masonic lodge, what they do is they have, for the initiates, whatever, the Blue Lodge, the first 3 degrees, they have this altar in the Masonic Lodge, and on top of it is a Bible. But when they get out of when it's the Red Lodge or whatever, they move that altar out of the way, and there's no Bible there. There's the altar, and under the altar is that blazing star, which is hidden most of the time from, view, and that's the true deity, you know what I mean? And that's, different levels in the Freemasonry. We done tons of shows on that. But the pentagram is. I know Wiccans say, well, it's a symbol of nature and good. No, there's no such thing as a symbol of nature and good like that.
No.
And
but
it's all.
You have to remember, Dan.
Yep.
Is that Joseph Smith was a Freemason.
Yes.
Yeah.
And most of the stuff that the Mormons do are from the Freemason rituals, not something that God or an angel told him. It's something that he knew already, and he changed it, to make it seem something
new,
positive.
Yeah.
Positive,
Yep.
Him and his father were really into magic, and that's where they started all their issues from. I mean, if you put your head inside of a hat with a stone, supposedly that lets you see, that stone better be shining when you cup it with your hands.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, it's not going to shine in your hat. Okay, and you cannot have. Well, the only person that I know that I have full confidence that could do that, shine the light in the dark, is our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Amen.
That's right.
And anybody else who says that they could see the light or they could see the future, no. The future is planned by only one person, and that is God Almighty, and He's got that all set up for us.
I want to intervene real fast and say a few of the things that the Mormons believe that this is in their Book of Mormon, that the tribe came over from some Israelites came over from Israel, and because everyone was corrupted, and they wanted to be able to practice their faith in peace. And so they came over here, and this is the story of the Nephites and the Lamanites. The Nephites were good. The Lamanites became rebellious, and so God cursed them and changed their skin color. And this is how they explain the Native Americans, which is crazy. But also they, so this goes off of the Jewish Kabbalism stuff that he was involved with. This is absolutely where this Israelite stuff came from. I absolutely believe this. And then they, what was I going to say? Anyway, so they brought occultism in from Kabbalism, from Freemasonry, from Luciferian, and Satanism.
In Babylon, you name it.
Yeah, so it's all over. And if you look at those pictures we sent you, there's pictures of the moon and the sun, and then you got the Big Dipper. So it says here that in Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike says that the Bellicidines, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, practice the mysteries with the old Egyptian legends, which a lot of the occult does. A lot of it goes back to Egypt. They symbolize Osiris by the sun, Isis by the moon, and you'll see these all over these temples. It's all over Salt Lake, the Salt Lake Temple too, and then Typhon by Scorpio and war crystals bearing these emblems as amulets and talismans to protect them from danger. And so the Mormons, Bill Sniblin goes into a whole thing about the garments that is such a serious thing that you don't even take them off when you're showering. You put them on the bottom of your feet, So they would be considered a talisman, and so they're looking for something to protect them outside of God, because the Mormons do not have a clue who God is. They believe that Jesus and Satan were brothers in the spirit world, and they actually have in their endowments, and I believe it's in the garden room where they call upon God, and Lucifer comes out, and he's the one that does the teaching, And so people somehow don't make that connection. They're calling upon God, and Lucifer shows up, and it's like, really? Anyway, so and so their endowments even, is all full of occult symbolism. I never got a temple recommend. I have been through a temple before it was dedicated. My father thought that somehow the light was going to shine or something, and that I'd strive to want to do that. And I just was never, I was so turned off by the Mormon Church because of so many things. Like I said, my awakening pretty much happened when I started hearing about children being chained in Mormon basements, in the churches. In the churches, they were, and it was more than it was several people. You would hear these at these church dances. People were talking about this, and so this is back in the late 70s and early 80s. I was hearing this stuff. And then stuff started getting stranger and stranger at that time. I know that you had Ty Harris on your show the other night, and he was talking about Fiona Barnett from Australia. And she was one of the people, one of the first videos I think I watched a few years back, where she was talking about how she was given over to her grandmother to raise, and her grandmother was a full-fledged Satanist and put her into human trafficking. And one of her main abusers was Nicole Kidman's father. I forgot his first name, but he was a famous psychiatrist in Australia. And right now she's got a video out called, is it called Candyland?
Candy Girl.
Candy Girl, where it talks about a lot of these abuses. And we've been trying to get a hold of her, but her information is pretty well protected. We've reached out to a few people, even Thomas Dunn. I want to know if he's got any way to get a hold of her, but he hasn't gotten back to us yet. And so, because I really wanted to use her story, with all the details of what happened to her. But she was actually flown in to into Salt Lake when she was about 7 or 8 years old, I think, and she was taken into the Mormon basement, and the same thing. She was sexually abused for hours, and then the prophet who was at my mother's funeral, that my dad was friends with, Spencer W. Kimball, pulled these guys off of her and said that she had enough. Anyway, but she was flown all over. She was Billy Graham raped her at Bohemian Grove. I mean, she names the names, and she's very. She has really found her voice. She ended up integrating all her splits, and it became a psychiatrist herself, and is trying to get people to wake up. And what's sad, though, she came to the United States a few years ago and to a convention in Colorado, hoping that she could find doctors to come back to Australia with her because the abuse was so off the chart. And then all she kept hearing is, "Oh no, we don't believe in that. We believe that's false memory syndrome." And I was like, wow. And so this stuff's bad. What goes on.
Do you want to play other video too, the secret Mormon ritual?
Yeah. If you want to do that one, I wanted you guys to see. Now, in this video right here, they used to have to take an oath. My parents took the same oath, I'm sure, because they were, they were way back in like the 30s and stuff, and 40s when they were going through. But Bill Sniblin makes the claim that because he started writing books exposing Mormons, that they changed some of the things in the rituals. And one of them was this death oath that they do. But these same outfits you're going to see, they still wear today. I grew up seeing my parents in these clothing all the time. When they're going, because they leave in their temple clothes instead of changing, they just leave in their temple clothes. So we see it all the time. But yeah, they're kind of like druid hats and stuff. But yeah, go ahead and play that video too.
Sure. Whoops, where were we? Yeah.
And then kept hearing it. Oh no, we don't believe in that. We believe that false memory syndrome.
What you are seeing is an authentic first-time ever on film reenactment of secret Mormon temple ceremonies that even most Mormons have never seen, and those who have sworn never to reveal these secrets under penalty of death.
The execution of the penalty is represented by placing the right thumb under the left ear, drawing the thumb quickly across the throat to the right ear, and dropping the hand to the side.
All of us who've been through the temple have sworn solemn oaths consenting to having our throat slit and our heart and our vitals torn out.
The execution of the penalty is represented by drawing the thumb quickly across the body and dropping the hands to the side.
In the Mormon temple marriage, the partners are sealed to each other for time and all eternity, in Mason-like rituals. And without this ceremony, no one can enter the presence of Joseph Smith and become a god.
Pay, lay, air. Brother Pratt, having authority, I wash you preparatory to receiving your anointings for and in behalf of John Kimball, who is dead, that you may become clean from the blood and sins of this generation.
Sister Bradford, I wash you preparatory to you receiving your anointings for and behalf of Eliza Barrett. Eliza Barrett, who is dead, that you may become clean from the blood and sins of this generation.
I wash your head, that your brain and intellect may become clear and active.
Your eyes, that you may see clearly and discern between truth and error.
Thousands of occultic ceremonies each day are performed for the dead, so that they too can receive the benefits of Mormonism. Mormons are encouraged to have encounters with the dead, and it's not uncommon for demons impersonating the dead to appear to Mormons stating that they've been converted to the Mormon church in the spirit world, and now want their family history traced.
Your loins, that you may be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, that you may have joy in your posterity.
Your vitals and bowels, that they may be strong and healthy and perform their proper function.
Your breast, that it may be the receptacle of pure and virtuous principles.
I want to point out too, whoops, hold on a second. When they said you could be like a god like Joseph Smith, that was the one, Satan's biggest lies. And Genesis 3:5, he tells Eve, for God knows the day that you eat of the fruit, when God, forbidden to eat the forbidden fruit, telling Eve that your eyes will be open, you won't die, but your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.
Yeah, yep.
And when the Mormon churches say Jubilees is God,
the one thing that put a curse on every man, woman, and child on earth is the fall of Adam and Eve. What they did, and Mormons teach that this was a necessary act to that they ate the fruit, and when they have their testimony meetings on every first Sunday of every month, they will have a testimony meeting. They fast all day, and then they do a testimony meeting. And during the testimony meeting, you'll always hear someone say how grateful they are that Adam and Eve ate the fruit so that we could be here. They truly believe that we would not be in existence like Adam and Eve cannot procreate, like God doesn't have that ability. But what they think about God is completely off the charts too. Anyway, so they say this all the time, and they're taught that the Bible is true only as long as it's translated correctly. So most Mormons never even touch a Bible. We had one in our house, and I don't remember ever anyone in my house ever reading it or reading it out to us. But we do readings from the Book of Mormon every day. They say it's a companion to the Bible, but yet they don't touch the Bible. But what I find very strange is that Freemasons, wherever they go in the world, like say if they go to a Muslim country and they have to swear on the Quran, they will say that the Quran is the most truthful and accurate book in history. And they'll say this with the Hindu religion, they say it with the Buddhists, they say it with whatever religion that they are setting up a lodge at. But when it comes to Christianity and the Bible, they will say only with this one book as long as it's translated correctly, as far as I know. This is what I've come to understand from researching Freemasonry. And so, there's so many eye-openers on so many things. The Mormons also believe, too, that God was once a man who became a god, and then he went back to being a man. So he was a man first. This is why they believe that they can strive to become a god and have their own planet. They believe that God lives on a planet called Kolob, and that him and Archangel Michael built the earth, and then God sends Michael down to see if there's man on the earth. So man was created, before God was. And if you ask, well, who was God? Who is the God over God? And nobody knows. I've never, my dad used to say, I don't know. I got kicked out of Sunday school habitually as a teenager because I wanted to learn more about Jesus. And the Mormons have, their own lesson books they're supposed to be doing. And my Sunday school teacher would get fed up and didn't want to hear it anymore. But just like Fiona Barnett and Holly that's been on your show, you get to a point, and I believe God does this, with abused people, absolutely. You know, he gives you a sense of hope through Jesus. It's like you can feel that there's something there about Jesus, and you want to know more about him. But all I ever got was teachings. It seemed like they mostly taught about Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, and I got fed up about it. Their lessons are so repetitive. They're so repetitive. And my sister, who was Mormon, I'm going to tell you a story about her here in a minute too. She was Mormon, and she was actually a temple worker. Her and her husband owned a cleaning company, and so she would volunteer to clean the temple too. But she was doing a lesson in the Relief Society, and I said, well, yeah, what are you teaching on? And she says, the word of wisdom. I was like, the word of wisdom. I said, Mary, how many times do you have to hear this? You think everyone in the church doesn't know that now? You know? And it's like a thing like the Mormons believe, you know, you don't do drugs, you don't drink alcohol, coffee is a sin, you don't drink hot teas or coffee, things like that, you know. But yet a Mormon party will involve a lot of sweets, you know. They'll do a lot of chocolate, sundaes, things like that.
Bring this up real quick.
Which has caffeine in it, you know. So, but it's not hot. So, you know, so they justify
talk about
certain
doctrines and all that in the Book of Mormons. And I just want to bring up the scripture real quick.
These are Mormon teachings.
The
Mormons have
bring up the scripture real quick.
The Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Price, and the Doctrine of Covenant, which they all contradict each other. They believe that God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit are completely different beings. They're not, you know, they don't believe in the Godhead, and so, but yet their Book of Mormon will teach the Trinity probably better than any other book out there, but they totally ignore it. They totally ignore that.
Yeah, and the Bible tells us, in 1 Timothy 4:1, that now speak it to express the Spirit expressly, that in a lot of times some will depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. And if you go to, there's tons of verses here, like Titus 1:9, holding fast to the faith of word that has been taught, and they may be able to, by sound doctrine. And there's tons of verses about sound doctrines, in other words, by doctrine only. And instead of giving heed to doctrines of men and devils, which is the Book of Mormons, you know, and the Watchtower for the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the Catechism for the Catholic Church, and you could go on and on and on and on. But this is what the biblical prophecy is saying, that they're going to turn their itching ears to these doctrines of devils.
Yep, and that's exactly what it is. Yeah. I just found this right here where it talks about the Smith family. It says that the Smith family was highly involved in sorcery. Joseph Smith Sr. was a member of the wood scrape religion, like I told you. He was involved with water witching and divination. He claimed to be a treasure seeker. He claimed to be able to use his magical wand to find treasure. Lucy Mack Smith, in her autobiography, claims that the family used to cast magic stones or magic circles and practice in the facilities of Abric, which is like abracadabra. That's where that comes from, a.k.a. ceremonial magic. Joseph was raised in the occult, and this was his way of life. He joined the Methodist Church, even though he was supposedly told that all the churches at that time were false. And the Methodists kicked him out because he was an occult and a glass looker, a.k.a. squire, a.k.a. crystal ball reader. So for 3 years, he would go back to the Sacred Grove. Literally, they called it the Sacred Grove in the Book of Mormon. The same day every year, September 21st, which is the equinox, a witch holiday, to see if he is worthy to receive the golden plates. So he supposedly received the golden plates that are written in Reformed Egyptian, which there is no such thing. They tell the story of the Nephites who are good and the Lamanites who are bad, and they became more and more wicked, like I said, and their skin turned dark. The Mormons explain the Native Americans this way, like I said, and they believe that, the darker your skin is, the more cursed you are by God. So, and what's sad is there truly is a type of brainwashing that goes on in the Mormon religion, and a lot of them
wasn't
will
he given
not.
The plates
I don't believe my stepmother has ever read a book or a novel outside of Mormon doctrine. You know, they have their own bookstores down here. They call them Siegel bookstores, and you will see people, you know, Mormons in and out of them all the time. But most of them, you know, those who are very devout will not read literature. They won't watch shows unless these things are church approved. You know, and you know, and this is how these things happen. How they're able to get away with the things they do, because they have such a grip on them. Every single Mormon church has a organ in there with these big old pipes. I guarantee that these pipes have some kind of hypnotic effect on the people. I've believed this for years. My brother, who was a cop, he said that some of the most strangest crimes in Utah are usually always within a block of a Mormon church. He believes that these steeples that Bill Snibbling calls the knells, you know, this is a knell, that Satan, you know, knelling Jesus, you know, to the cross type of thing. He believes that they emit frequencies that cause a lot of problems. So these might have been like the first form of a 5G tower or something, you know, some kind of tower. I don't know. You know, today I do know this, that ever since the coronavirus has broken out, or I should say since Donald Trump took office, they started censoring the internet, like stuff you could find everywhere. You can't find this stuff anymore. But there is enough stuff on the internet that anyone who is questioning their faith or wants to know more about this stuff can look this stuff up, because it is so drenched. You can find a lot of these rituals. They call them temple endowments on the internet, where you can actually see the stuff they're doing, and then compare it to what occultists are doing. It's probably harder to find the occult stuff, the actual occult stuff, than it is the Mormon stuff. The Mormons had so much markings on their temples that the Freemasons banned them for over 100 years from actually joining the Freemason Lodge. They've changed that since. My father told my brother, he just told me this other day, that he told him that there is a tunnel in the tunnel system. The tunnels actually link to the Freemason Lodge in Salt Lake, which is right around the corner from the temple. And so this would be a way that a lot of these higher-ups could go into these lodges and not be seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so also, Dan, I want to say this too. My younger brother's best friend, his company took a contract to do drilling for the Mormons. Is on the Mormon property. They own a lot of the property in Salt Lake, and so they had to block off the road. And he said that they drilled at least 8 stories down and pumped in, he would guess, over 1 billion yards of cement. And he says that you had to have a special pass, meaning that you had to be like an insider, you know, in order to go down there and smooth this out. But he said this job went on forever. It was like well over a year, I'm sure. But yeah, and he says that they wouldn't tell him, but what do they need all those stories down there for, you know what I mean? And there are several accounts of people that I had seen on the internet too that had seen what they called, some of them call them demons, others call them reptilians, in these bottom basement parts of the Mormon Temple. Yep. There's a part where I guess you have access to, because they do what is called baptism for the dead, and so the members are upstairs and they're doing baptism for the dead, I guess, doing their endowments and praying for the dead. And this is why the Mormons do genealogy as well too, so they can find their ancestors who have not come to Mormonism, and they can have a baptism for them. And they use only children. So it's an adult down there with a child, or children to be baptized, while the parents are upstairs doing their endowments. And so. And I don't know if we sent you a picture or not. Did you send them a picture with the baptism? Basin, yeah. So there's a baptism basin where it's all like oxen, all the way around it, bowls, yeah. Anyway, so, you know, always reminds me of Bollock, or Bell, you know, that there's kind of a worship. yeah, that's one. There's better ones, though. Did you send that to him, though?
I don't think so, but I can
okay.
Quick.
Yeah, if you want to send one over for him. Yeah.
What is that called, baptism basement?
Yeah, it's a baptism basin. Yeah, and so every temple is going to have, they vary in the temples, but I believe all of them do use the animals on their.
They're mimicking the basin that that was on the outside court of the temple, the first temple.
The tabernacle, you mean? Yeah.
Or you got it right here, and isn't it surrounded by a bunch of bulls?
Yep, that is it. So this is where they do baptism for the dead. The Mormons also have the largest genealogy library on earth, and they also have like I was telling you, they have a supercomputer here in Utah as well too, that gathers information on everyone on earth, they claim, and so they spy. This is part of their spyware. And so, Mormons control everything here in the state. They own, from what I heard, they used to own all the 7-Elevens.
Huh. Looks like Baal worship with the baptism there. Baal worship with the bulls or whatever. Oh, you still there? Oh, I think we lost him. Yep, I think we lost him there. We'll see if she calls back. Yeah, but it looks like Baal worship a little bit. The baptism there, probably the baptism in the blood of Baal. Oh, it's crazy stuff, man. And we just talk about the symbolism. Let me go through that real quick too. And the church is way further call back here. And of course, the OCNI, you see that in almost every religion in the occult. The OCNI is not the eye of God, you know what I mean? And you get taught that in exoteric versions, but the esoteric version is Lucifer, plain and simple, the eye of Lucifer. And that's big. The OCNI is huge in Freemasonry, and of course, it's huge in the Mormon Church because the Mormon Church is a runoff of Freemasonry. The rituals, everything to do with Freemasonry and all that stuff. And see the OCNI everywhere. You see pentagrams everywhere. And I'm surprised they don't have the Star of David on here either. But the moon and stars, the moon and sun symbolizes male, female, symbolizes as above, so below. So you see a lot of cultic stuff inside of the Mormon Church. And they blatantly put it out there. You know what I mean? Like I said, the symbolism, they blatantly flash it out there to people. You know what I mean? And to the people, it's just a cool design. And the thing is, they don't even look at the stuff. You know what I mean? There's a church now. My brother's house, he sent me a bunch of pictures. They have a skull and crossbones, all kinds of symbolism all over the church. You know what I mean? And people just don't look at it. Oh, there she is. Hello, is that Jocelyn? Oh, no.
Hey, John.
Sara, I'm sorry.
We're here. Go ahead.
Okay, you got the phone cut off or something like that. But I was just going through the symbolism and all that stuff, and and the handshakes, the Masonic tokens, and mind you, there's tons of them, guys. And Joseph Smith was into the Masonry. He was into the occult as well. And the guy was a complete wacko. You know what I mean? He made these false claims, and if I'm not mistaken, right, when he wrote when he had his author, I forgot the guy's name, that wrote down what he was seeing through the hat, and so he brought it home to publish the book. And the guy's wife told him, said, "Well, if he is really of God, tell him you lost the papers." And he'll repeat the same thing. And, of course, he repeated nothing like the same thing.
Yeah.
And then he claimed that God got mad, so he had him change it. You know what I mean? So that's, and the people actually believe this stuff. You know what I mean? And
they even did a scene on South Park, showing how ludicrous this is.
Yeah,
but
I
like
love that.
Said,
that was funny. They were going dumb, 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 dumb.
Yeah. Like I said, though, the brainwashing is so deep. And they are so convinced that they have the truth. Mormons truly, truly believe that they'll be the only ones in heaven.
Yep.
And what's sad is if they keep following this Luciferian satanic agenda, that there won't be nowhere near heaven. They also believe, Joseph Smith told them, or I was taught this anyway, that there will be an attack on the Mormons in the last days. And so I guarantee a lot of Mormons that might listen to this are going to take this show exactly as that, without doing any research or without doing any studying. And
look at the statues and everything, it's just like the Catholic Church, you know what I mean, and the statues and all that. And there's a complete disregard of the second commandment. It says you shall not make any engraven images of any likeness that is in heaven above or on the earth or beneath or in the waters under the earth. Don't make any of these things on them. Don't bow to them. Don't serve them, because God is a jealous God. You know what I mean? And of course, they got statues, just like the Catholic Church, statues and all kinds of symbolism all over the place. And yeah.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with God. So I want to read this right here that I wrote down earlier, because I listened to a lot of Bill Snowden stuff at the end, and I took so many notes, and I'm over here forgetting everything I even wrote down. We got our pages all mixed up today. It has been a nightmare trying to figure out how to get this stuff together. But he says, because on the Mormon temple on the west end, I believe, they have a Big Dipper. And now, why do they have all these? And me and my brothers used to bring this stuff up to my parents about these pentagrams and signs and stuff, and they say, no, they're not. And they've been going to the temple for years. And I honestly believe a lot of them don't even know that this stuff is there. They don't see it. God talks about having eyes to see and ears to hear, and veils lifting on you. I think they have veils over them, a lot of them, But it says on the west tower of the Salt Lake Temple, you will see the Big Dipper, which is the constellation Esra or Ursa Major, the great she-bear. But what you may not know is this constellation stood for the great dragon of space. This is known as the dragon of the 7 stars, with the 7 heads, and the stars were crowns. Mm-hmm. This is known as the dragon. Oh wait, no, I just read that right there. Sorry. It was in ancient Egypt known as the goddess Uet. This is by Aleister Crowley in The Hidden God by Kenneth Grant. This is page 123. She was known as the evil mother, the witch woman, and the goddess of night. The same dragon goddess is known as the mother of Set. Set is the Egyptian version of Satan. Just so people know. The Hebrew Kabbalists identify this same constellation as Lilith, known in the Bible as the screech owl. In Hebrew superstition, she is the mother of all demons. Today, she became a symbol of all feminists. That's pretty much right, though. Yeah, feminism. Mention Mike. Okay, yeah. Anyway, so that right there, that, and these, if people would stop and look up these symbols, what they actually are, and you compare them, while they still have a chance, because they're honing in on the internet and taking this knowledge and this information away. It's getting harder and harder to find. I'm like a 30-year conspiracy researcher, but unfortunately, due to brain damage and stuff, I've had to actually go on disability for this stuff now. I forget things like super, super fast. I'm like a squirrel all over the place. It's hard for me to keep my thoughts, in track, as if you haven't noticed. All I can do is try, though, and I'm just grateful to be given this opportunity. But there is like so much of I got pages and pages and pages of.
Oh, what about the Mormon underwear?
Yeah. Oh yeah. William just sent you a link.
A photo of Mormon underwear, both male and female, so you can see it.
Yep.
Okay.
I got it right here.
And then so on the Mormon underwear, they have a square and a compass over the breast part on the male and female, and then they have a what is it on the bottom? I forget. I'm trying to find this stuff right here. But this is Freemasonry. You put the square and compass together. This is a symbol of Freemasonry. Mormons don't make that connection. That this is what it is. Hold on. Let me see if I can find this up here. Okay. So the Mormon garments have stitched on them the Masonic occult markings. On the breast, on the right breast is a square, and on the left is a compass. Over the navel is a gauge, and over the knee is a gauge. Okay, and so these right here. Okay, and so I grew up, like I said, a big family of 13 kids. One of my chores was to fold clothes. So I not only did my parents wear garments, but a lot of my siblings did too. As I got older, I started doing their endowments and stuff. So it was something you would see all the time. You didn't think nothing of it. But this is literally a talisman, where they see this as something that can protect them instead of doing it God's way. They want to do it their way. They're following someone who was just off the charts, crazy, and into the cult. But he's a scammer, a big-time scammer. I from what I understand, Joseph Smith had a third-grade education. Now, what the education was back then, I don't know. It's probably a lot better than what we were taught in third grade. But he took after his father and got involved with a lot of things that he probably shouldn't have. But and he bragged. Joseph Smith boasted as being that he had more to brag about than any man on earth because of all of his accomplishments, and that he's the only man on earth to actually be able to keep a religion together. He says that certain people couldn't do it. Even Jesus couldn't do it, he claims. He not only that, he claims that Adam was a polygamist, and Jesus was too. Yeah, so he makes all kinds of claims. And what is amazing is you can go through church archives and find some of this stuff. Right now, this is, I think, is part of the walk away of the Mormon Church. Recently, they came out with, because they believe in a Heavenly Mother too, goddess worship, but she's very seldom ever spoke about. She's so sacred that they can't even say her name. So I never heard that. But recently, their prophet is talking about, that they should start giving more attention to the Heavenly Mother, and they're telling people to start downloading apps and things on their phone so they can keep her in mind and start maybe saying prayers to her, things like that. So that caused a big uproar in the Mormon Church, from what I heard, and so that might be part of the big walking away. But most of them will do it. They'll say, yeah. So this is goddess worship going on. It's always been there, but it's been under key. They're bringing this out now because they're bringing a lot of stuff out now. Because I believe a lot of this is being done by design to usher in the Antichrist. They're getting closer and closer, trying to cause all this stuff so they can usher him in, or her, or whatever. I think Antichrist will probably be a tranny of some sort. This is why they're so fixated on the transgender stuff right now.
So androgynous
but I could be wrong.
It's like an androgynous spirit out there.
What?
They're pushing that androgynous spirit, transgender.
Oh yeah, big time. And Kabbalism, teaches that God was a transgender, Jesus was, Adam was, Abraham was. This is all part of Kabbalism.
Yeah.
And so if God was a Kabbal or a transgender, it makes me, and if they believe this, that there's a good chance that the Antichrist shows up on scene. He could be a transgender as well too, disguised as a man, or he might come out. I think this is why they're pushing this stuff so heavy in the schools, the libraries, and other stuff. Is so that people will be conditioned to it and not bat an eyelash. So I'm so proud of people though who are stepping up and fighting against this stuff. Yep. The Mormons also recently told all of their members to get the jab and to wear masks and stuff, which kind of really shocked me. Living here in Utah, they always tell their members to vote Republican. I mean, they even tell them how to vote, and so we haven't had hardly any effect whatsoever in this state so far. But we haven't had, very few businesses have had to close down. Most, the state's running pretty much how it always has. They for a while they're making the masks mandatory in certain businesses, but it was kind of up to the business. And now you see almost no one wearing masks. But I guarantee a big part of the state has taken the jab because their prophet told them to, which is sad. I have two sisters who did it, so the world's going to change. By the way, you mentioned about black-eyed babies. Did you ever research this? Because we were looking into it and found some really strange stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to be doing a whole show on that.
Yeah. So I think definitely.
This show, we could do a lot more on this show.
Yeah, absolutely. We just have to learn how to navigate better, how to do this stuff.
No,
but
that's
also,
all right. You just had to go through the, explaining your youth and everything, which took a lot of time. How what your experiences are, and like we should come back and do another show and get more advanced and get more into Joseph Smith, more into the symbolism, more into the rituals, the actual rituals they do, and getting deep in depth into this. And so this show was like good because it brought out, a little of everything to show, what goes on in the church a little. And we should get, come back again and do another part 2 to this.
Well, that would be awesome because we already have all the notes on this.
Oh, good.
I'm just like we're so frazzled by the time we got the thing sent out to you. We were we were doing it wrong, but our we need to get a new laptop or something too to be able to do this because mine's broken and I just struggle with it. It just doesn't. It does what it wants to anymore. And so all my notes are, just kind of back and forth right now. But I would love to do that, Dan, because I am all about sounding the horn and trying to help people out, the best I can, So and by then hopefully we can get a hold of Fiona Barnett and maybe Thomas Dunn because he was really close with Russ Dizdar, and Russ Dizdar, like I said to you, deemed Utah the most wickedest state in the country.
Wow.
So I want people to think about that. This is not what people think it is. Granted, the majority of the people here are very kind and stuff, and a lot of Mormons are. They're beautiful people. It's not the people. Once again, it is the religion, and I'm challenging anyone who may be Mormon to start looking into some of these things. Like I said, while they still have the chance, because there is information out there.
This documentary here. Where is it? It's Temple of Doom by William Schnoblin.
Yeah. I highly recommend people to watch that. And the first one I saw was actually Joseph Smith and the Temple of Doom, and you can't find that nowhere now. It's gone. But this one here has a lot of the same information in it. So, so it is. This is a. What's sad though, like I said, if you're born into this stuff, you just don't know any better. You just don't know. And they keep to themselves. They keep their religion very, very secretive. A lot of the parts of it, which Jesus says, he did nothing. He doesn't do anything behind closed doors. Everything he does is in the open. So if they're preaching secret stuff, that's not from him. So, and if they, it's just. It breaks my heart because my family, a lot of my family is still involved in this. One of my sisters posted on her Facebook the other day that how she's so grateful that she belongs to a church that has a living prophet.
Well, do you want to do a couple of questions, Sue? And I want to apologize for folks because usually we take the phone calls, but her internet and her computer's not working, so she actually called on the phone line that people call in to ask questions.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to ask the questions, put it in capitals in the chat room. I know there's a 30-second delay, but if you got a question for her or me or both of us, put it in capitals in the chat room, and I'll get it to her. So if you want to hang around for a couple minutes for some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next time, too, we can hit on some of the research we found with these cases.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of victims in the Mormon Church of satanic ritual abuse, and what I find very interesting is some of them they would not have. I mean, the memories, they had no memories of it because they were probably splitting them, and their first memory was going to the temple for the first time to do their endowments. They started coming flooding back on them. We got a bishop. We have a memorandum from a bishop who wrote up this whole thing. So bishops are actually being excommunicated for coming forward with this information instead of letting the church handle it. And so, but this stuff's coming out. It is definitely coming out right now, and I'm so grateful.
Now, was that Dr. Lambright that you had for SRA?
Are you talking to me or Dan?
You.
Or Dr. Lambright for the SRA?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what?
I don't know what.
You want to do this? You got my cell phone number, so if you want to call my cell phone, and I'll open this phone line to the people so they can call in. And
oh,
is that the? Let me see here. Let me pull it up real quick.
Is it the one that we called you on normally, the Dan Bidondi one, or the one you gave us tonight?
Nope. Actually, I'll call you if you want to hang up, and I'll call you.
Okay. Good idea. Okay.
And this way, when people call in, they could ask you a question.
Okay. All right, sounds good. All right.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right, guys. So we are gonna open the phone lines, and I apologize because So yeah, 512-547-1776. So I'm gonna call her. So guys, yeah, phone line's open. So you want to give her a call? Hey, how you doing, guys?
Yeah. Okay. I got you on speaker. Hold on.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Fix my phone. You're gonna have me that far. I could. Okay.
He blindfolds the people.
Okay, Dan. Sorry about that.
So I got a question here for you from a Greg McGowan. He wants to know if do they do blindfolding and people that walk into the walls were they holograms?
When I was a child, you mean?
Yeah, they want to know if they do blindfolding and that the people that walk into the walls were they holograms or real?
No, they were very, very real. Very, very real. We had a lot of supernatural activity throughout our home. I got it really, really bad, and I'll go into that in our next show if you guys want to do one.
Yeah.
But and I'm going to say this too. I don't know any Mormons in my neighborhood that was not having supernatural activity. Pretty much every person in my neighborhood that was really active or all go into the temple to do their endowments. And as far as blindfolding, I don't know. I've never heard anything about them being blindfolded. I do know that there are a lot of Mormons who are Masons now, and that this is something that's being accepted. And so this is becoming more and more common, just like Christians, because they're told it's a Christian organization. But I know that, like I said, they have people in positions of power everywhere to keep these things, protected and hidden. So, but yeah, I don't know anything about blindfolding. But yeah, the supernatural world is very, very, very real. And, I can attest to that. There's a lot of stuff that I've had throughout my life.
So we got a phone call, and it's his brother Tim. Hey, what's up, Tim?
Hey, brother.
How's it going, man?
It's going. I mean, I'm so sorry for everything she's had to go through. But praise our Father and Jesus, bringing her out on the other side, and what a powerful witness and testimony and exposer she is. That's all I can say. So anyway, this is the icebreaker for everybody else. And with that, I'll say hello to everyone in the chat, woo to everyone in chat, and woo to you, brother. I'll let somebody else get on here.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for the call, brother. I hope you're feeling better,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, feeling good, man. Thanks. And thanks, everybody, for all your prayers. They really help. I appreciate it. Praise Jesus.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you for calling in.
Yes, thank you for your testimony. And I know it must be hard to relive a lot of it, but thank you for exposing all this stuff. I knew there was something wrong with them. All quiet up there, all that money. Never really see or hear about them. You know they're doing something up there. But anyway, yeah, thank you. It's a brave thing you're doing. And just praise God for bringing you out of it.
Absolutely, yep. Hey, Dan, if you don't mind, I want to take a minute and explain what happened to me, how I came out of how I woke up, how God woke me up.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, so I like a
All right,
lot
bye,
of
brother.
Mormons, I came
Hold on
out
a second.
of,
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Bye, guys.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
So, like a lot of Mormons, I went into the New Age world, and I was getting deeper and deeper into it. Like I said, I suffered from a complex trauma, but I didn't know that that's what it's called at the time. I spent my whole life in research. I actually got hit in the head with a bat when I was 8 years old as well, which caused me to have a stroke when I was 12 years old, which almost killed me. And so I was born with the same disease that my mother has on top of that. So I had tumors. It's called cavernous hemangiomas, and I have them in the brain instead of outside of the body. And so they don't know you have them unless you've actually had a bleed. And so this being hit in the bat with the bat kind of triggered the tumors to grow, which went into a stroke. They blew up, and then I had the surgery when I was 21. So I had a good run there for quite a few years after that. I've owned businesses and things like this, after this. But the thing is I was a resource kid, and I could not learn how to read or nothing, no matter how hard they tried. And I find out later, after I woke up to God led me to a woman named Diane Langberg, who specializes in complex trauma, and explains that some people, some victims, they're so traumatized that they don't learn how to read until later on in life. And because I kept praying, what is going on with me? What is going on with me? And so this is how I learned this. So I learned how to navigate the world through pictures. So God had my number with us, I'll tell you what. So I'm a happy New Ager, and I was studying MK Ultra because I used to be very much into conspiracy research and things. And I kept seeing this video on the sidebar talking about MK Ultra, and it was by a woman named Kathy O'Brien. And so, I just was, for whatever reason, it wasn't appealing to me. I didn't want to, just didn't want to see it. And so, after about 3 weeks of seeing it there, because of my back injury, I was drinking really heavy, and eventually I got involved with smoking pot and doing a lot of other stuff. This is, after me and William were together, we first lived together without being married. We were both just like way gone, like most people. You get stuck or tied up in the things of the world, the ways of the world. Anyway, and he went to work that morning. I couldn't work because of all my injuries. I was just going downhill bad, and so I woke up with a hangover. Went and got a cup of coffee, got in front of the computer, and see this video again. I was like, dang it. Okay, what is this about? By the end of this video, because she explains how she was sold into human trafficking and stuff, and I don't know if anyone either way, if you guys get a chance, go watch this, it seems like Kathy O'Brien. This is probably the first video she did, and a CIA agent rescued her and got her out. But by the end of this video, because she was talking about the Book of the Dead, and that this was a science, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and there was a science that, that they're doing these things. This horrified me so bad. I knew at that point, because I didn't know, I wasn't sure if there was a devil or even a God at that point, and I knew that the devil was real, Satan was real, and if he was real, that God was real. And I dropped to my knees and started crying and started asking for forgiveness. I honestly felt that the ground was going to open up and swallow me, not knowing that this actually happened, with Moses. I didn't know this was a real thing. Never read the Bible in my life. I owned one, but I couldn't understand it. Yeah. And so within about 2 days, it is like the weirdest thing. It was like the Holy Spirit was pointing out to me occult things, and because I had Buddha statues everywhere in my house, not knowing that this was idolatry and pagan. I was bringing pagan idols into my home, and I didn't know. I never could have known this stuff had the Holy Spirit not pointed these things out to me. And then I started, and then all of a sudden I realized I need to get rid of books. I need to get rid of CDs, things like this. So I had my son, due to my back injuries, had put these sacred geometry pads under my mattress. They were behind my couch. They were in our spare guest room, and under that mattress, because he told me, that these are here will help you with healing and stuff. They was called the Everything Pad. Okay, I totally forgot about them. But every time I laid down, I would see like this science swirling in my head. It was like these different colors. It was the same shape, but they were moving. And I could not figure out for the life of me what this was. And it was only when I laid at the bottom of the bed. Because of my back injury, I would rotate. And the mattress we had back then, we'd have to flip it every so often because it could become too painful for me. And so we decided to flip the mattress, and there was this pad. I said, William, this is what I've been seeing. This is exactly what I've been seeing. And then I started seeing it at different places in the house. And I go behind there, and sure enough, it was there.
And I come to find out these pads were in the shape of an inverted hexagram, which was what Bill Sniblin had made the claim that it was the most evilest symbol in the occult, in Satanism. So I had watched the video. So when I first woke up, I was trying to figure out, where I got my beliefs from, and how to understand God. So I figured I'd go back to the beginning, and one of the first videos I watched was Joseph Smith in the Temple of Doom. And so I'm having all these equally very supernatural experiences in the house we lived in before. Like I said, this goes with sexual abuse victims a lot too. You hear a lot of this. David and Donna has covered this stuff. But you get bombarded with supernatural activity. And so, and I got to the point where I became very used to it. And instead of being afraid of it, I realized through my enlightenment that these must be my alien brothers and sisters trying to reach out to me. This is how far gone I was. I was teaching the art of manifesting to people like The Secret. I've been doing it for 25 years, way before the video The Secret ever came out. I mean, I was like, and I realized it was weird, the stuff you start realizing. Like immediately I knew that this was not of God. This was not of God. And so I started, praying a lot. I went into repentance for months. William was coming home from work, and I was throwing like half our house out. Smashing stuff and art. I used to be an artist, but a lot of my art at the end, what I was doing was like these naked Roman statues with like Farsi writing behind it, and all this stuff, that was just kind of way out there. And people was taking our stuff out of the garbage can, so I thought, no, I'm going to smash it and destroy it. And he could not make sense of what I was doing. He thought I just lost my mind. And I told him I can't sleep in the same bedroom with you because we're living in sin. I mean, it was like so much going on with me. And I started reading the Bible. And when I got to the point where they're talking about the feast days, I knew absolutely we were supposed to be doing these, not knowing anything about nothing. Like, mind you, I never knew anything about the Bible, didn't know anything. The Mormons have a book in their Book of Mormon, a book called the Book of Moses. And they claim that they keep the laws of Moses, which there's not a law of Moses in there. I guarantee it, But yeah, the Levitical priest had a year and a summon. This is what Joseph Smith claims he used to translate the gold plates. So they stole a lot of things from the Bible. They knew enough to be really dangerous. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, yeah. Anyway, but. So I just kept reading and kept praying and kept, doing what I was doing and asking God to remind me of stuff. Because I was so far gone that I could like literally smell the sin on me. This is how I felt. I just literally could feel. I mean, just like I was drenched in sin, not knowing, Mm-hmm. It's like the law says, you don't know you're committing sin lest you do the law. And then after a while, my husband started seeing the changes in me, and I kept telling him, I'm not going back. But I could feel eventually that I was being forgiven, and that God He loved me. Before I even got to the Bible, I was coming to understandings of things in the Bible I was going to read later on, and so that absolutely blew me away. And that, you have the supernatural dark side of these Nephilim demons around all over the planet, but they're nowhere near as powerful as God is. Jesus absolutely means it when he says that he doesn't want to lose any of us, Yep. And he fights, he absolutely fights for us. And I could never come to this understanding, or I wasn't even looking for God, had no interest in anything like that in my life, nothing. And then here I am a few years later, and so, yeah, it is awesome. The Revelations talks about how God will raise up a remnant,
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be obedient to him, and so, yeah, he was trying to get my attention. But that's how he was doing things through videos. I seen a video shortly after that about John Lennon having a witch attached to him. He was talking about his wife, Yoko Ono,
Mm-hmm.
and I watched that and realized, oh my gosh, I got a witch attached to me. My best friend was a witch.
Got any more questions, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have more questions, Dan?
1 second here. Hold on. I'll go ahead for a minute. I'll check in a second.
Okay. Anyway, so that is about the gist of what happened. So also our first feast day we ever kept was the Feast of Tabernacles, and because we were just learning about the feast days and how to do them. We were listening to. I was trying to find the people who were keeping the feast or who were doing the feast days and these laws because I wanted to learn from them. And I got fed up and went to church again. And we church hopped around for I don't know how many months. And I got fed up and I told William when we came home, I said, I'm never stepping foot in a church ever again. And he says, what's wrong with this one? And I said, you're not getting it. I'm just not doing it. You know, they're not preaching innocent of God. And the same day I came home and found the video from Now You See TV from a woman named Denise saying why I left the church to follow Jesus. Now, I don't have the best memory, but that has stuck in me because that was the day that I found Now You See TV, and I went binge watching everything. David Carrico started around that same month for his first time on Now You See TV, and this was like a game changer for me because they were speaking the same language, you know. They were talking about the same things I was finding, but no one out here was doing it, you know. But also our first feast day of Tabernacles we went to was inside of a hotel because we didn't know any better, and that was like a strange incident too. We were praying for God to show us how to do this feast and that we can find people to do it with, and we couldn't find nothing. We started looking on the internet. My husband was driving down the street, found a man who I believe he had Down syndrome, passed out on the sidewalk. We get where we live gets extremely hot. We're like Vegas weather pretty much. And so he went over to go help him up, and he had a little badge on him that said Feast of Tabernacles. You know, like he had a membership or something. We were like, wow, no way. But this stuff kept happening a lot at first, you know, all these miracles kept happening. Yep. And so he went and looked up online, and we called them, and they had room for us. And so, but I remember a elderly Mormon man coming in there. He was morbid, but he did believe in the feast days, you know. So anyway, he was there at that time. But we never done, you know, because the Holy Spirit convicts you, you know. Some people might not be able to go out camping and stuff, and this is like maybe all they can do, you know. But, you know, he tells us to go out and boost. And so, you know, this is what we do every year is you know, we go camping. And that's Passover and Tabernacles are my favorite feast days. I have a blast in them. But, yeah, so this is how we came to doing this, you know. And then eventually, you know, because I wouldn't come back in the bedroom, we eventually got married, and the rest is history.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Let me look for some questions now. Sorry about that. I just got I was uploading something while you were talking. So let me see if there's any questions here. Oh, I don't know if this is a question. Sulfur is commonly associated with encountering demons. Sulfur is rotten eggs, putrid smell. I don't know if that's a question or not, but so let me put that in capitals. And
was that for me? As associated with the rotten demons?
Yeah.
It's okay.
A lot of people saying they're praying for you too. So I'm just trying to see if there's any questions. Doesn't look like there's any questions tonight because, like, yeah, you answered a lot of people's questions already. So during you know, all the show here.
Okay. Anyway, practice makes perfect. So
yeah.
You know, so this is our first time out, and I would love to try and educate people the best I can.
Oh, we got a question here.
Okay.
That's Yeshua Saves. He's asking a question. Has either of your guests been to Salt Lake to the temple? So have you? Obviously, yeah, because you've been to the Salt Lake, obviously the temple, right?
Yeah. I haven't. I've only been in one temple, and that was in the Draper Temple before they dedicated it. Yep. So I am one of the few people in my family that's never gone to the temple and done endowments. I had struggles with the Mormon religion as a child because of you know, there's a lot of conflict. You know, part of it is because my mother was in the hospital, and I was forced to be baptized at 8, and I wanted her to be there, and I didn't. And I wanted my mom. I wanted to tell my mom what was going on, you know, with me sexually being abused, and I felt that you know, that she would help me with that, and so my father kept pushing it. So I'm the only one in my family that has never been that was not baptized by my father. The Mormons also do what's called a patriarchal blessing, and this is a man that comes in that is, I believe that he's receiving this information from demons, but they do a blessing for you, and they record it, and then they print it up. So I'm the only one in my family that's never had one, because I asked him when it was my turn, and this happens usually when you're around 14 years old, how is this different from fortune telling? And because I asked him that, was put on church probation. And so when you're in church probation, that is like one step down from excommunication. And so people start kind of shunning you, and you're just kind of a bad apple. But I was already rebelling because there was just too much stuff going on in my life at home. I couldn't deal with it anymore. It was breaking me down. Yeah. I did 10 years of counseling, and I had counselors that would tell me, and this is back in the 80s and 90s, that they were not qualified to handle, these types of abuses. Yeah. And so I didn't know where to go anymore. I didn't know who to talk to. But but this stuff's very, very real. And it used to be when I was younger, it was 1 out of 4 women were sexually abused, or 1 out of 4 people. I don't know. Today it's 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. So think about that. This stuff is off the charts. And Utah,
even just one out of 100, that's bad.
That's bad, yeah. But it is so bad now. It is so bad, And what I went through is nothing compared to what, like, say, people like Fiona Bartley and other women have gone through. What I went through was nothing. And so, compared to that. But there are attachments that come with it.
Hello, I think you muted your phone there. Hello? I think you hit mute on your phone. Hello? Your phone muted. Yep, I think we lost her here. There we go.
You're still here.
Yep.
Dan?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we weren't on mute, but I've noticed this happens on a few of your shows. It might be something with your phone.
Oh.
Just saying, because we
Well, you want to come back next week or the week after?
How about 2 weeks? We're gonna do a research break.
All right, cool.
We just get an older man too that we've got to get him. We got to take care of some things for him as well too. But so call us and we'll get it set up, and we'll do a second one.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, Sara and Willy. I'll be in touch with you.
Absolutely. All right, and thank you to everyone in the chat room as well too.
Absolutely.
And everyone have a happy Sabbath, a restful Shabbat.
Yeah, definitely much needed. And Shabbat Shalom is to you as well.
Yep. You guys have a good night.
You too. Bye. All right, guys. So it's been over 2.5 hours, and does she help other people who went through that religion abuse? Yeah, I imagine she does, because her experiences she could relate to. For Jessica there, she could relate to what's going on and how she got out of it. Now, she didn't even get to that. I mean, when she comes back on, she's gonna talk about how she got out of it, what led her out of that, and everything else. And today was just like an introduction of stuff. We didn't even cover half the stuff we wanted to talk about. There's just so much stuff in the Mormon religion, and it's so complex. It really is, and that's why that church is like millions and millions of dollars, and it's sickening, it really is, and it's a bad religion, plain and simple. And that's why we, those of us in the remnant, we don't follow religion. You know what I mean? People can't comprehend that. If you believe in God, it doesn't mean you have to follow religion. You know what I mean? Religion is of man, not of God. And the scripture right here, the word of God and our faith is not a religion. It's a faith. You know what I mean? All the other things are religions. We're not religion. You know what I mean? And so that's why I call myself a follower of Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? And the remnant, not necessarily a Christian, because but a follower of Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? So, and us guys on the ICTV and everything else too. So I want to thank everybody in the chat here. Just looking for somebody else. Joy Trillo, why is getting married biblically exchanged for man's way by linking to government expectation? I don't know. I think biblically, like when you get married biblically, it's it's recognized under God. I mean, I don't know if because it says marriages are recognized, but however, I would feel more comfortable getting married under God, because people go to the JP just as the piece there, or these Las Vegas weddings and all that stuff. And I would always want a person, I would always suggest a person of God to be able to marry you, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, if you get married through the state, whatever. But I mean, like, it doesn't have to be a person who's actually a priest or anything to marry you biblically. You know what I mean? Somebody in the faith and all that, and could marry you biblically. You know what I mean? And it's like, here's the thing too: a marriage doesn't have to be recognized by the state to be under God. You know what I mean? It could be somebody that marries you guys biblically, that's in the faith, that under God you're married. That's more important than anything else. You know what I mean? Because in the state, it's crazy, man. In the state marriage and all that, they put you into some kind of contract. It's kind of weird, man. And the wedding rings and all that. I don't know. I just never had something wrong with the whole wedding ring. I'm sorry, using wedding rings and everything else, and that's just paganism to me. No, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong to have a wedding ring, but to me, it just seems like paganism. I did a show on are wedding rings biblical? You know what I mean? And I don't think they are, because they've never gave rings in the scripture. You know what I mean? So rings, they say, is symbolizes eternity. You know what I mean? And all that's unbiblical. It's paganism. You know what I mean? So, but I'm not saying it's evil to have a ring. I don't know. But I would like, if you get married, however you get married, would also have somebody there that is of God, that could bless it or ordain it under God. You know what I mean? And the person doing it doesn't have to be ordained by a ministry, or a man-made religion. You know what I mean? It could be a person of God, like David Carrico, John Pounders. That's what they do too. They do baptisms and weddings. You know what I mean? And they have, any of us could have the authority under Christ to do that. Biblically. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you all for joining us today, and we'll have her back in 2 weeks. Next week we're bringing back what's her name? Oh, it's been a long day, guys. So, yeah. Hang on a second. Let me make sure that's right, because I don't want to give the wrong date. 1 second. I don't want to give the wrong date, so because we've got a couple of shows lined up and stuff. So, I just don't want to give the wrong dates. Oh, yeah, okay. So, next week coming up here, we should have Julia Thompson on. Because she was open for next week or the week after. So we'll have this coming next Friday. We'll have Julia Thompson back on, so she could finish up her stuff. And then the following week we'll have Sara and Willy back on to finish up their stuff. Then we got a bunch of other shows coming up. We got David Carrico coming up. We got John Pounders, John Hall. A couple shows just with me. We got to talk about the Black Eyed People. I can't wait for that one. Tons of stuff. And also the Priest of Dagon. I've been working on the show for a little while and doing a lot of research, so we're going to talk about the Priest of Dagon, you know what I mean? And I think it's going to be a pretty cool show. So, and all kinds of cool stuff coming up. So, anyway, guys, I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. Love you all. God bless. And remember, follow the only plan, the real plan, that's the Bible. And if you like the show tonight, guys, and you want to help contribute toward this ministry, number one is prayer. Just pray for us and for our protection and everything else in the platform. And number two is like, share, and subscribe. And number three, if you got a couple bucks, whatever, we got a Venmo, PayPal, and a CashApp. 3 different ways for you guys to help fund this ministry and the streaming for the Rumble and everything else, and the studio rent and all this other stuff going on. And the links are all in the description. So, and I appreciate it very much. So, guys, tomorrow night, tonight actually, 11 p.m. Eastern, the Midnight Ride with David Carrico and John Pounders, and check out all their awesome shows. And also this Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern, I think it is, Course Correction Radio with Trey Harris. But all the links are in the description. And I want to thank you all for joining us. And free month on me, nystv.org. That's a subscription-based network. It's $8 a month, and it helps fund the servers and everything. But we get 1 month free, no obligation, 30 days free. Danaman, lowercase one word, is a promo code. Gets you 30 days free with no obligation. And thank you to our sponsors, JoshuaWattsLeather.com and CascadiaCutlery.com. So what an awesome show that was. So we will continue this in 2 weeks. And Until then, I want to wish everybody, again, just rest today, guys. I need them very much. I had a bad week this week. I had an uncle that passed away, my stepfather that passed away, my cousin got arrested. My good cousin, he got arrested and everything else, and just a lot of bad stuff going on, and by the ATF and everything else, and now they're trying to make him look like some kind of a terrorist, which is not even the truth, you know what I mean? And then my other cousin, who was like a brother to me, ended up turning on me and his best friend. So him and it's strange, man. Half the family all these people are liberals, by the way, you know what I mean, except for him. And for some reason, like, he turned against us, and literally him and that side of the family completely gaslighted me. Sitting there on Facebook, like, really running my name through the mud, bashing my father, who's been dead since 2001. You know what I mean? It's insane. It's a spiritual attack, you know what I mean? Then me, in my sleep, I try to sleep, and all of a sudden I get woken up, and, spiritual things, and, you know what I mean, just waking me up in the middle of the night. And so, yeah, your prayers, guys, because, the enemy's, literally out to get us, man, I tell you. But you know what? Bring it on, because we got Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? We got the Holy Spirit and all that good stuff. So, all right, guys, love you all. God bless. Shalom, and you are the resistance. Declaring war on the New World Order. TruthRadioShow.com.